We're still in really good shape. We control our own destiny. I think after the Four Nations, if anyone said we could win our last game of the year and we make the playoffs, we'd all take it. So we're in a real good spot because of the effort we've done over the last couple of months.
Well, that was Jim Montgomery after the loss on Saturday. Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Blues back in action tonight. And Alex, this is it. This is what we've been waiting for. It's one game, and if they win it in regulation, they're going to the playoffs. That's it. That's all you have to know going into this thing. This is what, as a sports fan, man, there's nothing better than a Game 7. Because going in, it's all on the line. We either win or we're going home. It's what makes us love sports. We don't know what the outcome's going to be. It's not predetermined. You go into it, and there's human emotions that go into these things. Like, it is everything that I love about sports and then some. It is right here in St. Louis tonight. It's you versus the Utah Hockey Club. You can't ask for anything more. Binner and net, Monty coaching them up. This is great. Now, you're not at full strength. You don't have Dylan Holloway.
I can't ask for more. I'd like Dylan Holloway in the lineup.
But this is what we all wanted coming into the season, man. The Blues said going into opening night, off the record mostly, but you could feel it in some of their moves as well. We believe we're a playoff team. We believe we have the roster to make this thing work. So how do they get there? Well, they did the offer sheets in the offseason. Super aggressive move that basically nobody in the NHL uses except for Doug Armstrong. And he doesn't just do it once. He got two of them, and they helped you get to where you are today. They fire their coach when everybody was like, dude, it's a rebuilding year. What are you doing? Like, why are you firing a coach when nobody expected this team to be good other than you? Well, they did it. It clearly worked. Then they go make a trade for some old, washed-up defenseman, according to most of the national analysts. And Cam Fowler has done nothing but come in here and become one of the most important pieces to the puzzle. And then they go into Camp Monty over the Four Nations face-off and become a completely different team down the stretch, break the team record for most consecutive wins in any individual season with 12 of them. And now here we are with one game to go, man. It has not looked great over the last 3 to 5, but one game left. You've got everything on the line. How are you feeling going into tonight, Alex?
It's stressful, but also exciting, if I can be both of those emotions right now. Because on one hand, look, me personally, I get flashbacks to the 2017-2018 season where they had that one game against the Avalanche. And
I forgot about that.
That didn't go so well.
No,
Don't bring that one up.
Well, didn't they get killed in that game?
Yeah,
by the
5-2, and Tarasenko got hurt in that one. So, that's why for Blues fans, you always go back to the past moments. And, talking with guys that played in that game, they made it very clear it had nothing to do with that Avalanche game of getting in. Sure, you needed to win and get in, but there were other games that impacted their outcome. But the exciting part of this, and I think this is the part that's going to take over as the day goes on, man, we've missed playoffs in St. Louis. Like, whether it's been Cardinals playoffs or Blues playoffs, we have missed this feeling. It's been 3 years since we saw playoff action at Enterprise Center. And I know this isn't the playoffs, but this is as close to it as fans are going to get. This is going to be a playoff atmosphere tonight of win and get in. And it's something about this team compared to years past to where it does feel like one game, I'd put all of my money on Jim Montgomery and his squad. It feels like they understand
That's not gambling advice, by the way. Just his own feelings.
No, yeah, it's not gambling advice. It's just if I were to put money on it.
Sure.
If in the state of Illinois with the Circa Sports Illinois app, that's really where it would happen. But, man, a lot of those guys understand the gravity of what's at stake tonight. Now, I could argue they should have understood the gravity at stake with Edmonton and Winnipeg. There was going to be a letdown at some point. This is the moment, though. They have won 11 straight at home. Jordan Binnington is about to break a franchise record if he can win on home ice tonight. Everything about this game feels like the Blues are going to get it done. And look, this is this was 3 years in the making when they started to talk about this retool. And I don't know if they're out of it. I'd lean towards yes. Depending on the outcome of this one, it might change a lot of people's minds. But 3 years in the making, where 3 years ago we thought this was going to be 5 to 6 years. And now we're talking about potentially being in the playoffs on a magical run out of the Four Nations break that potentially could strike some confidence back for this group.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting tonight to see how they come out against this Utah team. And I think what makes this exciting is the fact that, one, you control your own destiny, but two, there also is kind of that thought process that you're talking about of flashbacks to that Colorado series. And also just knowing Utah's a pain in the Blues' ass. Let's just call them what they are. They are a problem for the St. Louis Blues. And that's where my nerves come in tonight because, I want to so much be like, yeah, Montgomery's going to have the boys. They're going to be skating. They're going to be hitting. They're going to be playing great. But then I look at the last 3 games and go, yeah, I don't know. I feel a little nervous about how the Blues are playing coming into
Playoff hockey, man.
The nice part is, hey, look, Calgary's still got to do 2 wins, even if you lose this one, which makes me feel a little bit more comfortable because I've seen that Calgary team. I don't think they're doing that. But if you could just take care of business tonight, don't have to sweat that at all.
Yep.
We'll see how they look tonight, because ever since the Holloway injury, they have not been the same St. Louis Blues team that we got used to knowing.
And that's the part that I think is probably the most stressful. The defense, the turnovers we've seen, you could clean that up in one game. I've seen them do that. Offensively, it's been 3 straight that the team has just not been going to the front of the net. And I hate to break it to Blues fans, but if you want to win tonight, it doesn't matter if Vejmelka's in net or some dude from the East Coast Hockey League's in net. You're going to have to get in between a lot of their big defensemen.
And do I have this right? Vejmelka has started 23 consecutive games for them.
Yeah, it's because
up until literally last night.
Yeah, it's because that Connor Ingram, their other goaltender, he was injured, and then he went to the Players Assistance Program for mental health issues. And so they called up an East Coast Hockey League guy. He's been the backup for Vejmelka for about 23 games.
And when you say backup, you mean he is in like the role that we thought Taylor Motter was going to be in, where it's, hey, we have to have somebody on the roster.
He's warming the seat.
You're never going to see the ice. That's the role that the backup has been in up until literally last night when he took the ice finally for them. Otherwise, every single game, Vejmelka has been the guy that ends up going out there. I'm not kidding. Literally, since the Four Nations face-off, Ingram got the first game. And then up until last night, Vejmelka has started every other game for them.
And Vejmelka has not.
That's insane.
He has not played the Blues this season. He played the Blues 3 times last year, and the Blues beat him 3 times last year. He had an 867 save percentage last year.
That does like destiny, doesn't it?
That doesn't bother me about this game. What bothers me is one man, and he's from St. Louis, and it's Clayton Keller.
Dude, it's just...
The dude becomes Connor McDavid when he steps on the ice in St. Louis.
It's everything about that line, right? Keller and Schmaltz. For some reason, they are the kryptonite for the Blues.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Like, Colton Parayko seems to be... It's not always this way, but Connor McDavid told Jamie Rivers he's the hardest defenseman in the NHL for him to go up against. It's the size, it's the length, it's the skating speed, it's everything. He just shuts down plays against Connor McDavid for the most part. Now, that doesn't mean he literally shuts him out every time they go up against the Oilers, but he's tough. He's a tough matchup. For whatever reason, Schmaltz and Keller are the toughest possible matchup for these Blues. I cannot explain why, but this dates back 5 years now, man. We're going all the way back to bubble hockey when those guys kicked your ass. And I couldn't explain it then because they were a bad team, and I can't explain it now because the Blues have gone up against some superstars. But for whatever reason, Keller, Schmaltz, those guys seem to have your number. That's a task at hand tonight, man. You've got to find a way to shut down that line. If you can do it, you can win this game like 4-1.
Yeah.
But you got to find a way to do it.
Yeah. The last time the Blues played Utah, they won that hockey game. It was the 2-1 win that they played in Utah, and the Blues were at full strength. They had Holloway in the lineup, but their defense was the part that you hone in on at full strength. They had Fowler, Parayko, Broberg, Falk, Suter, and Tucker. Now, Letty's playing for Tucker tonight, and Montgomery said yesterday, look, I'm going with experience.
Yep.
And as much as I fought back and thought Falk shouldn't be in, he's right. You've got 4 guys who have played 1,000 games in the National Hockey League. This is the lineup, with the exception of not having Dylan Holloway, you want available to you going into this game against Utah. Utah's at full strength. They just put 7 up on Nashville yesterday. They're going to be a little bit more exhausted. This is going to come down to, 1, do you make the dumb mistakes that Utah capitalizes on? And 2, how bad do you want to get to the front of the net?
The lines are out for morning skate today.
Guess the lines, T-Bone!
Neighbors Thomas Booch, Snuggie Shin Kairu, Joseph with Sonny and Bolduc, the WTF line, and then Fowler, Parayko, Broberg, Falk, and Suter, and Letty. Binnington, of course, in the starters net for this one, which I know Alex disagrees with. I found that to be a little interesting.
What's that?
You didn't want Benner in net. You thought you might go with Hofer in this one.
No, that was in Saturday's game. I would have gone Hofer in Saturday's game against Seattle.
I thought yesterday you had said...
No, I said I would have played Hofer versus Seattle. That's why I was so surprised where you were like, oh, well, we got to talk about this. I'm like, why, man? The game's over.
That's on me.
Yeah. No, Hofer, I would have...
That's on me. I misheard you. You didn't misspeak. That is on me.
I would have played Hofer on Saturday, and hindsight's 20/20, but Hofer's been better on the road. And Binnington, we know when he plays a lot of games in a little amount of time, he can get fatigued. I was thinking 6 days off for Binnington. Hofer plays in Seattle, but they don't like my ideas there, which is fun.
You want to get hyped up?
Like
This is
I was just going to read that.
This is a quote from Jim Montgomery after practice today.
Hold on, I'm going to run through a wall on this one.
Via Jeremy Rutherford of the Athletic. He's going to join us coming up at 12:15 here on BK and Ferrario. Quote, it's pretty simple. There's a reason why we're here. We put ourselves into this situation. There's an identity that we believe in. We know how to go out and execute our game plan. And we're going to go out there and do it.
If he added about 4 F-bombs in there when he said it to the team.
I was gonna say, does that make you want to run through a wall?
Yeah, well, I'm just in my head, it sounds like Craig Berube with a couple of F-bombs in there.
100%.
It's pretty effing simple. There's a reason why we're effing here. We put ourselves in this effing situation. There's an identity we believe in. We know how to go out and effing execute our game plan, and we're going to effing go out and do it.
I feel like you added
got
like
me
2 or 3
fired up.
extra
There we
F-bombs,
go.
but yeah, generally speaking,
No.
that's
As an
kinda where I'm at.
Italian, you fill
I like that one better.
As an Italian, you fill every empty space with the F word.
Yeah.
It works.
Whatever the heck that was, Monty.
From the text line, BK, we all know it's your show, but at least listen to your co-host.
Amen, text line.
That's on me.
He never does. Never. And that was in a show meeting.
I know. He turned and looked at me and he goes, wait, what? We got to talk about this tomorrow. And I was like, okay, well, the game's over, so sure. It seems odd.
I thought we were going to use that as a segment for today.
No, he was trying to
Clearly, I
throw me under the
misunderstood.
bus. I get it. I understand how this works with BK. He's got to make himself look good.
If you guys want to get your thoughts in on how you're feeling going into tonight's game, which feels about as close to a Game 7 as you can leading into a regular season game, go ahead and do so. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. The YouTube chat is available for you at youtube.com/101ESPNSTL. The studio cams are powered by the Air Alliance team. And today, if you want to get your thoughts in on what you're expecting going into tonight's game against the Utah Hockey Club, the Scott Lee Heating mic drop is also available for you over on the 101 ESPN app. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. In 15 minutes, we got to get into some NFL quick hitters, including a superstar that appears to be on the move heading into this year's NFL draft. We'll tell you who that is coming up in about 15 minutes. But next, you ready to buy into this Cardinals offense? There's some historical comps recently that you can get into that make me feel pretty good about it. We'll talk about that next here on BK and Ferrario. Hey, it's BK for my friends over at Victory Men's Health. It is time to unlock your inner champion, and that means different things for different people. What does that mean for you to unlock your inner champion? For some, it could mean losing some of that unwanted weight gain that you had. If you need some help with that, it is difficult to do. They understand that over at Victory Men's Health. They can find and put together a plan that works for you. It'll be tailored to what you need. Also low testosterone. If you feel like you're not getting the same out of your workouts, you're gaining some of that mid body weight. If you feel like you just don't have the energy that you did when you were in your 20s and your early 30s, low testosterone could be the cause for you. You can get that checked. You can get the levels checked over at Victory Men's Health. They have 4 great locations across the St. Louis area: O'Fallon, Missouri; O'Fallon, Illinois; Sunset Hills; and the location that I typically go to in town and country. Read all that they have to offer for you over at victorymenshealth.com. That is also where you can book your first appointment today. Super easy process at Victory Men's Health and victorymenshealth.com.
toward right. That ball's going to carry to the track. That's going to bounce high up off the fence. Donnie's 3 for 3. He's around second. He's on his way to third. He'll make it standing up.
Man, that was a hell of an offensive performance yesterday. Once again, going up against a legit ace on the opposing side. Framber Valdez is one heck of a pitcher, and the Cardinals put it to him. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. That audio courtesy of FanDuel Sports Midwest. You got a great start out of Sonny Gray last night, and it almost felt secondary, Alex, because the story of the Cardinals season thus far is what this offense has done under new hitting coach Brant Brown. Last night, 14 hits for the Cardinals. They end up scoring 8 runs. A lot of that damage was done early against Framber Valdez, who lasts just 4 innings. Had to throw 90 pitches to get through 4 innings against the St. Louis Cardinals. 6 earned runs allowed for him. Could not strike anybody out. They just had a great game plan once again against a legit number 1 starter, a guy that if he was on the mound game 1 in a playoff game, you feel pretty good about it if you were the Astros. And at this point, the Cardinals are one of the top 2 offenses in Major League Baseball. It's them and the Yankees. Now, if you look at runs per game, you could also throw the Cubs into that category as well. But some of the other numbers, it's really just the Cardinals and the Yankees. So maybe it's a trio. Cubs, Cardinals, Yankees as the top 3.
That's what we all expected.
Yeah, that's pretty much how we thought it was going to be going into the season, right? Alex, I wanted to look this up because I think it's a fair question. We're 16 games into the season. Are you ready to truly buy in to what the Cardinals are doing offensively?
You're going to try and sell me on it.
You know I am, but I'm also hesitant on this stuff because early seasons can be weird, right? We talked about this last year with the Pirates. The Pirates got off to a great start last year, and I told T-Bone 100 times, I don't believe it. Look at the roster. I don't believe it. Look at the roster. Well, I was predisposed to believing in this roster offensively because I've been calling for them to be a better team than they've been offensively for 5 years now.
You'll get it right once, man.
So eventually I was going to be right. So far this year, they have an 800 OPS as a team. I want to look this up earlier today, Alex, because I feel like that doesn't happen a lot in Major League Baseball through 16 games where an offense has a 800-plus OPS. That's been true. This year, there's 2 of them. It's the Yankees and you. Last year, there were 3 of them. It was the Braves, the Dodgers, and the Brewers. All 3 of those teams went on to make the postseason. One of them, of course, won the World Series. 2023, there were 4 of them. It was the Braves, Orioles, Phillies, and the Rays. All 4 of them went to the playoffs. All 4 of them won 90-plus games. 2021, it was the Dodgers. 2018, it was the Red Sox who went to the World Series and won it. And the Angels, who unfortunately won just 80 games.
God, don't be the Angels.
2017, it was the Nationals. They won 97. 2016, Orioles. They won 89 and went to the wild card. 2016, there were 2 teams that did it. It was the Rockies and the Cardinals, and both of them, unfortunately, did miss the postseason. Rockies won 75 games. The Cardinals team, though, did win 86 games. I think all of us would consider that, relative to expectations, quite a success for the Cardinals this year. And then 2015, the other teams that did it in the last decade, the Royals and the Dodgers. Royals won the World Series that year. Dodgers went to the NLDS. So, Alex, I eliminated 2019 because there were 10 teams that did it that year. It was the outlier, the ball is juiced season. But if you look 2014 to 2015, or 2024 to 2015, that decade, 16 teams have started the first 16 games of the season with an 800 OPS or better. The Cardinals have now added themselves to that list. There were only 3 of them that went on to miss the postseason that year. Those are the outliers. And one of those 3 won 86 games. That's my hard sell for you. Typically, when you have this kind of a start offensively, you end up being a pretty darn good team. Are you buying it, though? We're 10% of the way through the season now.
Not yet. And the only reason the only reason I'm not buying is, yes, it's 16 games into the season, but I want to see what this looks like as you get deeper into the season. Because as great as it looks, we are talking about a lot of guys that are having success that have not had the longevity careers in Major League Baseball that are going to hit a wall at some point. And what do you look like when you hit that wall? Can you pull yourself out of it? Why am I blanking on Brant Brown? I almost said Blake here for a minute, which is not correct. Brant Brown has found he's found some type of magic sauce to get these guys their approach so confident at the plate. It's why it's so hard for me to sit there and kind of push back and say I'm not ready to buy in yet, because Brant Brown has done a really good job with this, but I'm just not officially there to look at this and say, yeah, they're going to be a playoff team, and it's because of their offense. I think their offense is good. I think they've got a lot of confident players on it, but I just want to see what this looks like when you get a month into the season, 2 months into the season. Like, once you hit that wall where it's like, man, this has been a long year. How do we dig ourselves out of this? We're all in a little bit of a rut. The offense isn't working. Can you pull yourself out? Can you stop the snowball from going downhill? That's when I'm going to look at this and be like, okay, they've got something here.
Yeah, and I think...
So you're not buying it?
No, not yet.
When you say you're not buying into the offense, what do you mean by that? Like, what is...
I just don't know if they can do this for 162 games.
And when you say do this, sorry, I'm trying to understand where we're at right now offensively with this team. You don't think they're going to be a top 3 offense in baseball?
I don't think they're going to be a top 10 offense in baseball all season.
I just wanted to see where you were at with them.
Because what we've seen in the past, and
you think they're going to fall off a cliff then?
Not a massive cliff. I don't think this is going to be a bottom 10 offense in baseball. I just don't think you're going to be one of the 10 best offenses all year. Okay. I think there's going to be a spurt at some point where you dip to 15, 16. And when that happens, what do you do? Because does Walker go into a little bit of a mind rut once again? Does Nootbaar go into that? Does Victor Scott go into it? Does Mason Wynn?
Couldn't I argue they've already had that? Mason Wynn didn't hit for the first week of the season.
Sure, but other guys were carrying them. At some point, you're going to hit a rut where there's 3 or 4 guys.
Everybody is failing?
No, where there's 3 or 4 guys failing, and you're looking towards...
I think you've had that. Wilson Contreras has failed all season long so far.
I don't think you've had 3 or 4 guys.
You haven't had 3. You've had 2 guys that have failed all season.
Victor Scott's been in a rut for the last week or so.
Who's failing right now for him?
I'm not so much concerned about the ruts now. Like, the ruts now they're going to happen. Everybody has their 0 for 20 stretches. I think the fair concerns from... Yeah, I think the fair concern that Alex is bringing up is more of what happens when you get to the dog days of summer, because that is where we saw, and I'll just use him as an example, Burleson had that, right? You look at Alec Burleson's first half, and it was like, wow, that guy is awesome. Can he continue this? You look at the second half numbers, and you had to even raise the question of, okay, is Burley a guy that the Cardinals can plug into their lineup every day? That is a fair concern. And some of these guys shouldn't experience that. Like, there's no excuse for Wynn to experience it since he played a full 162 last year. Burleson shouldn't go through that now that he's had a full year to experience it. But guys like Walker, who haven't been through a full 162, or Victor Scott, those are really the 2 that I would kind of highlight as, okay, can you continue to do this? And that will be a fair thing to keep an eye on, because that is the one thing that could potentially derail them is when they start to get tired during the dog days of summer.
And what happens when injuries continue to pile up? Because the thing about it is, like, yes, you're without Herrera right now, without Wynn right now, and they're finding ways to score. But what happens when you're in the middle of June and you've played 80 games and it's like, man, we can't keep doing that? It's the adversity that I haven't seen the team be able to handle for the last 3 years. And now that they're looking good, I give them credit. I'm not taking it away from them. This offense is fun. It's exciting. But I can't sit here and act like this is going to be the offense that we're going to see in June and July, and it's why I'm just not sold yet.
All right, we got a couple of texts. I apparently had a bad tone there, and I apologize for that. From the 618, BK, you're not always right, man. It's 16 games in. It works both ways, and who's struggling and who's not yet. Long way to go. Ruts will happen. I agree with that. I'm trying to understand where we're at on this offense. If you're down on them, that's totally fair, man. I have been trying to say the offense will be better for 5 years, and every single time I have been dead wrong. So, yes, I totally acknowledge and understand. They will absolutely go through some ruts. My point on this is I think that we are underselling the fact that Ivan Herrera has been out for a week now. They have already been without Mason Wynn offensively either, because over the last, 4 days now, they've been literally without him. And prior to that, the first week and a half of the season, he wasn't hitting at all. Nolan Arenado just got out of I think it was a 1 for 22 stretch or something like that. Victor Scott is currently going through a really bad stretch. Up until the last 2 days, Wilson Contreras has been one of the worst hitters in all of Major League Baseball. And yet, they're still finding ways to be the second best offense in baseball so far. So I think they have already shown us more than what they had at any point over the last 4 years in their ability to overcome some of those players that are going through a rut. So will they go through an issue? Absolutely, and they may end up being the 17th best offense in baseball by the end of the season. Alex could totally be right on that. I am open to that possibility. What I'm saying is I'm also open to the possibility that this is who they are. And if they are this kind of an offense, and recent history indicates that typically when you get off to this hot of a start, it's somewhat real. It becomes a sustainable thing other than literally for 3 teams that have done it in the last decade. That's a pretty good sample size right there. when you have this kind of a start to the season, typically your offense will sustain in a top 10 level, and then it becomes a question of what is your pitching? And I don't know the answer to that. That I am much more hesitant to buy in on because it's really just one turn through the rotation, and the bullpen has been up and down, teetering on, is it real? Is it not? I think the back end is pretty good. I really have questions about the middle innings that they're getting right now, but just to answer my question directly, am I buying into the offense? Hell yeah, man. I'm buying in that this is a top 10 offense in baseball right now. That's what I'm willing to say today. Top 3, I don't know. That's a really high bar to clear, man. There are some unbelievable offenses that will eventually rise to the top. But top 10, yeah. I think you have a top 10 offense in baseball this year.
Yeah, I believe in what we're seeing from the offense because I don't see the guys. I don't see who the young kids are that are going to just fall off a cliff as the dog days of summer come. And even if they do, I mean, you just brought up, I mean, they've had really 2 guys that haven't been able to contribute for them through stretches, and they've been able to overcome that. So I think the offense is going to be this, maybe not third best, but legitimate. Like, I would be shocked if it falls out of the top half of Major League Baseball in terms of what they get offensive production wise. I think it will come down to their pitching because to me they are offensive identity of a team. They take great at bats, they get on base, they hit for average, they also slug. Like, they do everything you would want from a lineup. They're incorporating a little bit of speed now as well. It's just going to come down to, will they be able to get enough starting pitching? The bullpen, I think you can figure that out throughout a season. That one I'm not as worried about. It's the starting pitching. Like, you look at those 3 teams that you had mentioned that missed the playoffs, that had this kind of a start to begin the year. Look at the 2018 Angels. They did not have a great rotation. In fact, they only had 3 guys throw 100 innings that season.
My God.
That is wild. You look at the Colorado Rockies. They did not have a good rotation. They had guys with 3 guys in their rotation that had above 4.6 ERAs. And then you look at the 2016 Cardinals, same exact thing.
Their downfall. Yep.
It was the Michael Wacha dealing with injuries. Jaime Garcia wasn't very good. Mike Leake wasn't good. And Adam Wainwright wasn't good that season. That if you don't get good starting pitching, we've seen this in the past. It doesn't matter how good your offense is. Your pitching has to stabilize things so your offense can do what it's been doing these last couple of games, which is, hey, we can score 5 runs and win a baseball game, unlike what we had seen in the Angels series, which was, Hey, we scored 5 runs. Oh, yeah, sorry, we gave up 8.
And I think that's a bigger picture conversation to be had about this team is what does it mean if they have a top 10 offense? I think it means they could win 85 games. I think they could be in that conversation. That's what it's going to take for them to win those 85 games. Somebody on the text line brings up another, what I think is a good point from the 636. They beat Skeens, Nola, Wheeler, Valdez in the last week. That says a lot, whether it's early or late. Totally agree. Them finding a way to do this against legit number 1 pitchers, and they didn't even bring up the fact that they did this as well against Pablo Lopez earlier on in the season, and Yusei Kikuchi, who's not a number 1, but is a really talented, like,
He's number 1 in my
number 2 or number 3 starter for a playoff team potentially. Doing this against that level of starter, pretty impressive in my mind. And to be able to do this now sustained for a month, I mean, we're 3 weeks into the regular season so far. Hell of a start, if nothing else. It's been a lot of fun to watch. And, I mean, there was a watchability index that was posted on ESPN's MLB site earlier today.
We're kind of low.
They were low. I would disagree with it. I think the Cardinals have been an extremely watchable product so far this year. They've been a fun team to watch because of this young offense coming through in big situations, just like last night.
See, I'd kind of disagree. I thought the ranking was right, but it's not because of the offense, because, my God, I hate watching their pitching.
Yeah, well, that's fair.
You're going to the game today, right, PK?
I'm planning on it, yeah.
Yeah, they're not scoring. They're getting shut out. There's weird shit that happens with BK's in attendance.
They're
not scoring today.
I think the watchability is just people that might be like, this is fun, but is it real?
Well, it was more like big picture based. It had a bunch of different criteria that went into it. But if we're just purely talking about, is this a fun product to watch right now? I think the answer is yes. It's been an enjoyable
low bar to clear from what those last couple of seasons have been, though.
I think it's wildly unfair what you're doing here because it's so similar to what the Blues were.
I'm not taking anything away from their offense. They're off. I'm not denying it's not fun.
But it's fun to watch.
It absolutely is, but the statement can also be true, low bar to clear from what the last couple of seasons have been.
The same was true for the Blues.
I'd agree with that statement, too. Sammy Blay was in your top 6, and now he's in the AHL.
Yeah. Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll get into questions and answers.
Yeah, he was.
Next, NFL Quick Hitters here at BK and Ferrario.
Alex Ferrario back with you to tell you about my friends out at Classic Air Care. You might be in the market for a new HVAC system. Now we're in the spring season where it's not 115 degrees outside, so you're getting by with your older unit. But you know it's been making those odd noises every time you turn it on the last couple of years, and you don't want to get stuck in a bind in the middle of a hot season and think, now we've got to upgrade the HVAC system. It's why you need to call Classic Air Care, because right now they have a tool on their website that you can get a free estimate of what that HVAC system is going to cost you. Plus, they have financing available to you to when you purchase that new HVAC system. And here's the biggest factor into all of it. When we went through this process, because we purchased ours last year, had Classic Air Care come out, had about 3 different companies just to test the market. And what Classic Air Care did, they walked us through. Their technician showed us all of the pieces that were in fine shape that could still be used, and then the stuff that needed to be shifted and purchase some new pieces. So it saved us a little bit of money, and the financing options that were available were really helpful. So give Classic Air Care a call today. Again, check out that free estimate tool that they have on their website and schedule your appointment. And just tell them Alex Ferrario sent you, classicaircare.com.
Tanner Hendrickson here, the Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Blues back in action tonight as it's their final regular season game as they host the Utah Hockey Club. Win and in for the St. Louis Blues if they can beat Utah in regulation. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 6 o'clock with Alex Ferrario. Puck drop at 7 o'clock with the voice of the Blues, Chris Kerber. And the Cardinals took down the Astros last night as they took game 1 of their 3-game set. They'll be back in action tonight. 6:45 will be first pitch as Eric Fedde will be on the mound for St. Louis. This portion is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at Londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
With Alex and T-Bone on BK, it's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Guys, we're just a little more than a week away from the NFL draft. Feels like this one has snuck up on me. Do you guys feel the same way about that?
Yeah, because I saw a tweet yesterday. It was like 10 days in the NFL draft. I was like, really?
Draft class must not be very good because nobody's talking about it.
Quarterback class.
Yeah.
That's what it is, right? It's every draft is determined by, is this an interesting quarterback class or not? And the answer to that is a definitive no.
And we're talking about a dude with 4.5 sacks potentially in the top 5 of the draft. So
yeah, it's not a great class. There are some really compelling players. Abdul Carter, the Penn State edge rusher, is a really good player. I think Cam Ward's going to potentially be a really good quarterback, but in a normal class, I think he's more of a top 10 pick than the number 1 overall pick. And Travis Hunter is obviously amazing, but that's kind of it. There's a bunch of T-Rex armed offensive tackles that might have to bump into guard. There's a tight end that might go in the top 10. Alex mentioned it. Another edge rusher that has 4.5 career sacks. He might go in the top 10 as well. Just a weird class overall. Ton of running backs. If you like a running game, this is the class for you. The reason I'm bringing this up, though, is because one of those second-round picks might be moved next week, Alex, for an all-pro cornerback. NFL Network is reporting that the Dolphins and Jalen Ramsey have mutually agreed, in other words, Jalen Ramsey has demanded a trade, to explore trade options heading into the 2025 season. The expectation is that he will be moved next week prior to, day 3 of the NFL draft. Alex, this is also coming with the backdrop of Tyreek Hill. Now, he's got some other stuff off of the field right now, but he's kind of been hinting at the possibility that he could be dealt on draft night. What do you make of the Dolphins and what's happening with them right now,
It's
Alex?
about to get blown up real quick. Like, they were a team that when they hired Mike McDaniel and they acquired Tyreek Hill, it was like, hey, the window's open, let's start competing, and they never got the job done. This goes back to the Tyreek, though, in the offseason where he was like, look, I'm out. And then everyone was like, is he going to get traded? No, he's not going to get traded. And once one guy makes it very clear he doesn't want to be a part of the team anymore, I think that's when you start to see the other dominoes start to fall, the Jalen Ramsey. So whenever they decide, whatever they decide with Ramsey, with Tyreek Hill, I wonder if there's going to be a couple of other guys that move on. And then you're going to be talking about a team that's just going to be bad, fire their coach. Welcome to a rebuild.
They feel like the team that has been kind of trending towards the, hey, it's time for us to kind of take our medicine and reset the cap. And yet then they just look at themselves in the mirror and go, no, we're not that team. We're not going to do that. They need to move on from Jalen Ramsey. It would be a smart decision to try and reset these books because they haven't. You're right, Alex. Their window has closed. They are no longer in it. And I kind of feel for McDaniels because, I think he's a solid coach. I think he's probably more of an offensive coordinator than he is a head coach. But, yeah, they have got to start taking their medicine. Otherwise, they're going to get stuck in a spot to where they are stuck on bad contracts and just continuing to trend in mediocrity.
He's getting fired after this year, dude. It's over. Yeah. I mean, I like him. I like Mike McDaniel. I think he's going to be the offensive coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers next year.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I could see that.
I think that's where this is heading, right? I think he's a good coach. I think he has some issues. I think his teams lack some physicality. And I think he's become too much of the run and gun, just like Showtime style offense. I don't know that works necessarily once you get into the playoffs. You need to have some level of physicality as a team. His teams lack that entirely. And I think we've seen, last year was their all-in season, and now they're about to break it up. I will be fascinated to see where Jalen Ramsey ends up. Because he's a stud player, man. When he's healthy, when he's right, and he's got his mind right, he can help a team go from good to great defensively. The first team that comes to mind for me now, I'm not sure that they necessarily need him because he's kind of more of like T-Bone, you saw it with the Rams. He's like a perfect nickel corner that can play a hybrid style defensive back.
Yeah.
The Eagles feel like the team that typically would be all in on a move like this. But they had Cooper DeJean play that role for them last year, so they don't necessarily have a need for him. The Lions make a lot of sense. The Packers are an interesting team to me for something like this. The Seahawks could make some sense in my mind for that kind of a role. I think the Ravens are always an interesting team for these kind of hybrid players. They're a team that immediately jumps to mind for you guys?
Mine was the Lions. I mean, they're a team that I think anytime they can pounce on a player to this status, they're going to jump on it just because their all-in year is probably going to be right now.
I just don't know that they have the money to be able to make a move like this.
Yeah, because the one team I thought of, and I don't know if they've got the money, is the Rams make sense for them again. I don't know. They've got $17 million in cap space. They'd almost have to give him a contract extension to really help kind of lower this down. And I don't think they want to do that anymore, but they need secondary help. They were the team that first popped into my mind.
Man, this is going to be such a big hit for the. I think he's going to have to get a new contract with wherever he ends up going.
And that's going to be interesting because, like, when you think of corners, when you're at Ramsey's age, and he's already started to, his health's really started to go south for him. Dude, he's 31 this year. Like, once they hit their 30s, corners typically is just gone like that.
And that's why I wonder if the balance of you go a new contract, are you going more money or are you going to try and win another Super Bowl?
Washington's another team that would make some sense.
I thought about
They'll have a lot of money, too.
Yeah.
They've got the money. They've got a quarterback that's young, and those are typically the teams that can make aggressive moves like this. Young quarterback starting to build whatever the next iteration of that team looks like. They could make a lot of sense for Jalen Ramsey. All right, with Alex and T-Bone on BK, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Coming up next, we'll get to questions and answers here on BK and Ferrario. We're just talking about the NFL draft. The Giants, according to Ian Rappaport, are having a busy week working out quarterbacks. They are working out Jalen Milroe this week. They are also working out Shedeur Sanders, Tyler Shaw, and a couple others.
There's more?
Do you guys believe that the Giants will leave this draft with a new quarterback in the top 2 rounds? Giants pick, I think, 3rd in this year's draft, if I'm not mistaken.
I think they will. I think they're going to draft Shedeur.
You do?
Mm-hmm. Tannenbaum said that, what was that, on Get Up this morning or yesterday, where he said that there's like a really ongoing argument right now in the front office of if they should not draft Shedeur. I think they're going to.
Yeah, I think they end up with a new quarterback in the first 2 rounds. I
think they're a second-round team to me.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of them with Shedeur. I'm getting the sense that he's going to fall. I think he's going to ultimately fall. This is my tinfoil. I think he's going to be a Saint. I think that's
9.
where he's going. I think he's fallen to 9. I wonder if the Giants either trade out or they go for whoever's left between Abdul Carter and why am I drawing a blank on the Travis Hunter? I think they're going to go with whoever doesn't get picked by Cleveland because I think Ward's going 1, one of those 2 guys going 2, and then they'll take that 3rd guy and they'll wait for quarterback in round 2.
You know what I would
Brady Cook, future New York Giant.
I don't think this team will do it, but I'd be curious about it, just given what we talked about in the last segment. The Dolphins at 13 are an interesting potential Shedeur Sanders landing spot. If they are like, you know what, we're not sure on the Tua situation. We just don't know if we believe in it long term. Yes, we just gave him that massive contract, but let's give ourselves an out here. That would be another one that's interesting. I agree with you, though. The Saints have... Dude, they just found out that Derek Carr might miss like the entire season potentially with this shoulder issue. They have no answer at the quarterback position. They're desperate to get some kind of an answer on any of their spots. They're just a bad team in a really bad spot. I could see that.
My favorite thing with the whole Carr situation is everybody's reporting, the Saints knew this for a while. I don't think they did. I don't think they did.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. From the 314, guys, do you think Mo's inability to get things done this offseason caused the Cardinals to actually stumble into a decent team? I think this was... People might not believe it.
The only thing he didn't get done.
The plan.
Yeah, the only thing he didn't get done was trade Arenado.
Yeah, I think this was the plan. This is why they decided. It's the same thing as the Blues. I've said all offseason, and I got crushed for it. I think the Cardinals going into this year were very similar in terms of their spot to the Blues going into this past season. Now, I didn't know how the results would differ or if they would differ, but the situations were extremely similar in that they both had like some veterans that maybe you feel like are bloated contracts. I feel like people felt that way about Shin going into the season. Certainly Justin Falk, a couple others. The Cardinals are in a similar spot, and there was some questions of, do you trade some of these guys? Do you trade a Jordan Kyrou? Do you trade some of the young players for the Cardinals? Do you trade a Ryan Helsley or Eric Fetty? They chose no because they thought it could be a better team than people expected going into this season. You didn't have to buy that. That was more than fair, but this was the plan for them, technically speaking.
Yeah, I think this wasn't hey, we backed into this. I think this was we created the runway for the kids, and we saw if it worked or not. The only one that I just totally disagreed with, and look, Mo tried to trade Arnaud, couldn't get it done. To me, he still technically failed the offseason because he couldn't get the deal done. But the only one that I totally disagreed with was the Fetty move. I would have traded Fetty because I just don't think he's going to hold much value at the trade deadline. The Helsley one I can get. I can get how you go in the offseason and say, yeah, what the hell? Why not? Let's hold on to him. Let's see. If he's healthy and we're bad, okay, well, then we're going to get a huge return for him in the offseason, unlike what the Brewers did where they gave him up for Devin Williams for Nestor Cortez, who's hurt already for them.
Yeah. Yeah, that the closer one was the one that I was pretty adamant about, but then if you weren't going to get anything that benefited you long term, it makes sense, and it might pay off for them to have that guy to at least keep you competitive this year. I still don't think I would re-sign him after this season, though.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers from the 618. Guys, remember when you all touted Luther Burden as a lock for a first-round pick? I think that was the same show that you insisted he would be a Heisman candidate. I'm not sure that ever happened this year, but yeah, I think everybody believed at one point in time Burden was going to be a first-round pick. I still think he might be, but I think he's a top 50 pick.
Yeah. And I asked if he could be a Heisman. I never said he will be a Heisman. I was just curious. Could he fall in that conversation? And we weren't the only ones that were asking that. The SEC network was talking about, like, could he fall into that conversation?
And if he did repeat the production from a year ago or increased from that, yeah, he could have been potentially in the conversation because there weren't quarterbacks that really put up crazy numbers this year for the most part. he just didn't. He didn't repeat what he did a year ago. And I think that's part of what's dropped his draft stock a bit, is that he wasn't able to repeat on, okay, now people have you circled. You are the game plan for opposing defenses. How do you respond to that? And this year, the answer was not all that great. He was a good player, but he was not the same elite game-breaking talent that we saw in 2023. So I think teams have some questions about that. And I think he's a true slot receiver as well. He's a yards after catch merchant out of the slot. And that is a very specific fit. Like, if he went to the Rams, I think he would be unbelievable in that system. He goes to the San Francisco 49ers, like one of those McVay, Shanahan-style coaching trees. I think he could be great for a team like that. But it requires you to not already have a player in place. Like, he can't go to the Chiefs. They cannot make it work with him and Rashee Rice. Doesn't make sense given what they have already on the roster. It's a very specific fit for Luther Burden and what he could do at the next level. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. From the 618, guys, what's your all-time favorite Marvel movie?
Endgame. That's probably a chalk answer, if there can be a chalk answer for that, but that was the one that I think I probably saw 4 times in theaters.
That's probably Ragnarok.
Yeah, I enjoyed Ragnarok. I don't know. Just the Thor movies I can't get behind. And especially
Winter Soldier is another one that I love.
I said that was probably going to be the one I was going to go with. was Winter
Deadpool originally
Soldier.
wasn't Marvel, and now it is. But, like,
Yeah.
Deadpool, now that it's considered Marvel.
The first one?
Yeah.
That one was really
That
good.
was the best one out of all of them.
I would go Winter Soldier if you kind of take the Avengers ones out of
Yeah.
it, because you're probably right.
That's
Endgame
the
probably
chalk
is the
answer.
chalk answer, but
Civil War was good, too.
I was about to say,
Oh, yeah,
Civil War,
was
to be
really
fair,
good.
is like an Avengers movie without actually being
Wasn't
labeled as an
Civil War
Avengers
when
movie.
they showed Spider-Man? That was the first one that
Yeah.
Spider-Man appeared in.
yeah, because Iron Man whispers, Underoos!
From the 618, T-Bone, how would you feel if a Mizzou player ended up becoming the Rams' best receiver?
As long as he helps the Rams win, I'm all aboard.
That's like asking, how would I feel if a Kansas player became
As
the
long
Chiefs'
as he
best player?
failed
Cool.
in college with Mizzou, I'm happy. But once he becomes a Ram, I'll root for him.
Great. Do you like any of the Thor movies?
No, I think all of them.
all of them were
like I said,
bad, too.
Ragnarok's
You didn't like
okay.
Ragnarok?
Yeah, it was fine. It wasn't anything that I was like, I got to watch it again.
Love and Thunder, I thought, was one of the worst movies I've ever
yeah,
seen.
that was
It was
bad.
horrific.
Yeah. All of
was
the
really
Thors
good.
weren't very good.
Yeah.
Like
I loved
Ragnarok was the
Ragnarok. I thought
best
it was
one,
awesome.
but it to me it doesn't compare to the other.
You know, when your best movie's average, you got a problem.
It like doesn't compete with any of the first 3 Iron Man or any of the first 3 Captain Americas. So
Captain America has a great series.
Yeah.
His movies are amazing.
I thought Iron Man's was too.
Iron Man was great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Iron Man 2 was kind of...
I liked 2. 3 was the one where I was like, okay.
Or maybe 3 is what I'm...
Yeah, 3's
thinking of.
2 was with what's his face, Mickey Rourke.
Coming up in 15 minutes, Jeremy Rutherford, Blues insider for The Athletic. But next, we got to talk about the Blues. They're sticking with the group that got them here. Is that the right call? We'll talk about it next year on BK and Ferrario. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Alex, the Blues did not make changes to their lineup heading into tonight's game. Now, line changes, sure. They've got Booch, Thomas, and Neighbors together. Snuggerud is down with Shin and Kyrou. And then it's the 70s line. Joseph, Sonny, and Bolduc. That's your top 9 going into tonight's game against Utah. Win and get in scenario for the Blues. But they did not take guys out of the lineup. I did want to ask you about this because there was at least some thought yesterday of, hey, if Texier is available, and apparently he is, do you consider removing Joseph from the lineup and inserting Texier in for him? The decision for them was no. They're going to go with the guys that got them to where they are today, and Texier, this would be his first game back after that injury. Do you like it? Do you think it's the right call?
I do think it's the right call because if my options were Matthew Joseph or Alex Texier, I would have gone with option 3, Dalibor Dvorsky. I don't think they wanted to do that for an inexperienced guy in a Utah game, which I can understand. But if you're telling me you could play either Matthew Joseph or Alex Texier, I would play Matthew Joseph because Texier is more of a shooter rather than a forechecker / can't play on the penalty kill. Matthew Joseph can play on the penalty kill. And by the way, Utah's power play has been awesome lately. I think it's been clipping at like 40%, 29% or 39%, something like that. So you need penalty killers. That's probably part of it. Matthew Joseph's game has dipped off over these last 5 or 6, and the ice time tells you that. He played 942, 752, 944, and 1057. But there's a role that Matthew Joseph can play in this game versus the role that Texier would play. Plus, Texier hasn't played a game in about a month. So
yeah, that was my big.
That's rust to try and shake off in a massive game. So, yeah, I mean, you said it in the office. You go with the girl that you brought to the dance. That's what this is right now. He's going to the line that got him the 12-game win streak that put them in this position, and you just have to hope that Matthew Joseph gets back to the style he played in the first 12 games of that win streak when he was with Oskar Sundqvist and Zach Bolduc.
I would have been pretty inclined to make the switch just because they're not playing Joseph in the third period anyways. Like, it's clear they just don't trust him in some of these situations. Once the games get tight late, they don't trust him to not make that turnover. That's a back-breaking mistake. I don't know stylistically if Texier would have made sense on that line. I again, to go back to what we talked about yesterday, I would have broken up the lines in a different way than what they decided to do. But to me, it really came down to, do you think Texier is actually ready for this kind of an environment? Again, he's been out of the game since
the Pittsburgh Penguins game.
So we're talking about a month of him not playing organized hockey, and now you're inserted into what is effectively a playoff-level atmosphere. At least Joseph has been a part of these games.
And
man.
Utah plays fast, and you can't have somebody who is missing a step. I know the guys talked about it on the fast lane. Like, you can't replicate in practice what happens in game in terms of speed, and he's practiced once. Like, Parayko just went through this, but he's been practicing with the team for about 2 weeks. Texier's practiced once.
Yeah, I think that it's, all things considered, probably the right call, but I think what you see them do is do what they've done in previous games. If this thing's close late, you just won't see Joseph, and they'll go with 11 forwards effectively, and they'll double shift a guy down on that third line.
And that's bad for this team, by the way. Like, they need to have 4 lines that they can roll, because typically in the games that they have shortened the bench, that's where they're coughing up those leads late. So you
don't
really
have a choice.
No, they don't. But you really need to hope that Sundqvist and Joseph and Bolduc line, they've got to find the magic that they had, because out of the Four Nations break for a good 10-15 games, they were playing well. Bolduc was scoring. They were cycling the puck. They weren't turning the puck over. They were playing so well that Joseph, there was no reason to take him out of the lineup for Texier. Texier got in after I think they said they wanted to just give Joseph or Sundqvist some rest. So you get back to that. Regardless if you have Holloway or not, I think Snuggerud's going to be fine in that second line role. Is it ideal? No, but I think he's your best option for this. But you've got to have a third line that you can roll with the other 3 rather than shorten the bench and only play 10 forwards.
All right, so that's the situation for the Blues as they go up against Utah tonight. Alex going to have pregame coverage right here in your home of the Blues, 101 ESPN, starting at 6. Puck drop for that one at 7. I did want to look a little big picture with you, Alex, because you said something interesting in the office earlier today. And you were talking about the Dylan Holloway injury, and obviously he's not going to be available tonight, and we'll see on the playoffs at all. How does his injury and the way that the Blues have played since it alter, if at all, your view on how the Blues are building this team?
Yeah, well, and I give you credit too, because you've talked a lot about this. But for me, I think this is a realization if you're the front office, looking at it saying these are the downfalls, the pitfalls of building a pack mentality. Because you build a pack mentality, you hope that you can have 4 solid lines, but really that pack mentality is run with 2 or 3 guys that are just guys that just bring it every single night. Schwartz was this way for the Blues when they were competing in the past. Like he was just Mr. Fix-It for whatever line. Barbashev was this way. But when you lose one of those guys, now you're looking to other players whose identity is tied to that guy. So the line combinations of Holloway, Schenn, and Kyrou. Schenn's had 1 point in his last 9 games. Kyrou's still been scoring, but look at what they've been doing with him. They've been having to juggle him from 3 different lines to try and find offensive consistency. So I really wonder, because typically when injuries pop up, what happens when you're one of the best teams in the National Hockey League? You look to the superstar, you look to the guy to just win you the game with 1 shot. Maybe they think they have that in a couple of their wingers in Snuggerud or Bolduc. I really wonder if you see this, the downfalls of no Dylan Holloway, and say, this is why we need to go get a top-line winger. Now, he could get injured, but what do they always say, right? When your best guy gets injured, you're bleeped. There's no planning for it.
Couldn't I argue that's what happened here?
Absolutely, with Dylan Holloway. But what I'm saying is, Holloway is such an all-around player. I wonder if they're looking at this saying, this is why we need a guy who can change the game with 1 flick of the wrist. We need a guy who, when we lose a player that is the mainstay for an entire line, we need a guy who can change the game with 1 shot. And again, maybe they believe that's Snuggerud. Maybe they believe that's Bolduc with more experience. Montgomery was glowing about Snuggerud earlier today. But it's just when you build a pack mentality, you play a style, you have to play that style with or without guys in the lineup. And sometimes there are guys that just drive the bus that play that style.
This is one of the reasons why I discussed Dylan Holloway as potentially being the team MVP this year, is because of what you just mentioned. He does everything. He's got it all. It's all tied into one player. He's the forechecker. He's the puck retriever. He's the guy that gets in, and whether you're on the rush and Jordan Kyrou's on one side, Dylan Holloway's on the other, he's got the speed to put the pressure on the defense where they have to make a choice. And if they try to defend Holloway, well, now you've got Kyrou going to the net. If they end up trying to take away the pass, well, now Holloway has the shot that is a threat to the goalie. So he has the true all-around package right now. And when you lose that player, and it's just, to me, it's just Dylan Holloway, and you could put Robert Thomas maybe into this category as well. Those are the guys that make their lines work. And when you lose them, you're bleeped. So if this was an injury to one of the other guys, I don't know that necessarily we're talking about it the same way. You can interchange some of these parts. If you move Jake Neighbors up and down the line, or if you do that with Zach Bolduc or Jimmy Snuggerud, those guys don't really change things all that much. And I'm not saying that to diminish what they bring to the table. They're super important pieces, but they don't change the overall team dynamic the way that a Dylan Holloway does. So I think some of this is us coming to the realization, dude, Dylan Holloway's a star. Like, that's what this has done for me. It doesn't change my team building philosophy. I think it reinforces the importance of having those stars, because when you have them, they unlock so much from everybody else that is around them. When Dylan Holloway is on that line with Schenn and Kyrou, those guys are better because of him. So I actually think it kind of, for me at least, goes the other direction of, this is why I always thought they needed to go get a star, was to boost everybody else up when they're on the ice. And if you're unfortunate and they get hurt, man, that's part of the risk of building around stud players. So that's how I view it. I don't think it really changes, to me, their team building philosophy at all. I think it just reinforces how important Dylan Holloway is to what this team is trying to build right now.
And there's no doubt about it. I mean, he is proving how impactful he is for a team, just like Jaden Schwartz did, like an Ivan Barbashev did. Like, when you pluck him out of the lineup, you were really trying to fill that void.
Can I be honest? I think he's better than both of those players you just mentioned.
I think
he's a better all-around guy than both of those players.
I think he is too. I don't know if he's still a star though.
Yeah, I think
that's where I would differ with you. I look at him and I go, I still don't see him as a star. I see him as a good all-around player that belongs on a winning team, but he's not the guy that I think anybody circles and says we fear that guy.
Maybe I should clarify what I mean when I say I think he's a star. I think he's a guy that, he's not in that superstar status, right? He's never going to be a Leon Draisaitl. He's not a Connor McDavid. Those guys, to me, there's like 10 players in the league that qualify for that level of status. I think he's more I want to make this clear before I say it, he's a different style of player than the player that I'm about to mention. But in terms of the importance to their respective teams, I think he's more of like that Scheifele or Kyle Connor type of a player, where he's a stud, and when you go up against that team, you've really got to worry about them and they kind of make everything work because of the skills that they bring to the table. I think he's in that lane as opposed to the Pasternak, the Kachuk. He's not in the same category as them.
To me, the problem, I think what this comes down to is they're going to look at this as there are other guys that when you pluck a player like Dylan Holloway out of the lineup, their game completely disappears. And that's the problem. The problem is, well, we lost Shen, we've lost Kyrou. You can't lose those guys because you lose one player on that line. That's where the problem really comes into play for a Blues team right now.
Yeah, I just don't know how you fix that. Like, I don't know what the fix is, potentially going out and getting another star, but then you lose some of your depth because now you've got to trade from that to be able to go get that player, and now it becomes even more important for that player to be there because when you lose him, you have less to be able to lean back on because you lost those other
Sometimes,
pieces.
though, that's the next step for a team that believes their window's opening to getting to being a cup contender, and that's the tough decision that Doug Armstrong's going to have to figure out if he's ready to make.
He's Alex Estebon on BK. Jeremy Rutherford joins us in studio coming up next year on 101 ESPN. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK, and we are joined in studio today by the one and only Jeremy Rutherford, Blues insider for The Athletic. You can follow all of his great work over there and on Twitter at JP Rutherford. JR was just over at Morning Skate, now joins us in studio. How you doing, man? Big game tonight for the Blues.
Yeah, doing great. Yeah, I mean, obviously, just a reporter, not involved in the game any way, shape, or form, but you kind of wake up. I'm sure Alex feels the same way. It's like, today's a big day.
Yeah, no, it does. It felt like that, and I told them, it's like I've been torn in the feelings because on one hand you want playoffs, and on the other I remember 2018 when they lost to Colorado in that final game, and it's like, oh God, I don't need that deck. At least that was on the road where you could turn the TV off and forget about it. This one, you're stuck in the building and you have that potential of daggers if it happens.
You know how you suppress some memories where you're like, I don't even remember that. Like that, I know that I remember that happened now that it's been brought up, but I do not recall previously that was the 2018 Avs game for me. I'd suppressed that memory in my mind. I had no recollection of it. And then Alex mentioned it this morning. I was like, man, why do we got to bring that bad juju in with us?
You lived through it for a really long time as a Blues fan, I think, with all of the people love to bring up the John Casey goal off of Steve Yzerman. And I'm like, man, what are you doing? Why you got to bring that up?
Yeah, I was I grew up in St. Louis, so a Blues fan growing up for a long time. And when that goal happened against John Casey, we went out to the airport that night. I remember as kind of fans to support the team and just recall John kind of walking through the airport. You could see kind of the look on his face, the whole team, just a devastating loss.
Knowing that an entire city is pissed off right now. Yeah, it's one of those repressed. You try and forget about it, but they always seem to find their way back to the front of your mind.
All right, Jared, let's get into this. The Blues going with a similar lineup, same guys at least in the lineup as they had previously been going with. What do you make of that decision, especially with Texier potentially being available tonight?
Yeah, I think it's the right decision. I think that, as Jim Montgomery said a couple weeks ago, you go with the guys that got you here. You know, I think even though Matthew Joseph has had some hiccups and they don't play him down the stretch, I feel like he's a guy who, can help you when that line is going. And I think Texier just hasn't played in a while, and I think it's tough to throw in a guy in the situation like that. And with Dvorsky, I know some people want to see him out there too. I realize Jimmy Snuggerud's playing. He's raw, but he's shown it that he can make some plays. I think, not playing Dvorsky tonight is probably the right decision too.
What about the line combinations in general? Because we see Neighbors go back up. You see Snuggerud dip down. It's very obvious they're trying to find somebody that can work with Schenn and Kyrou. Schenn's got, 1 point in his last 9 games. Kyrou's been scoring, but it hasn't been to the same flavor that we saw with Holloway.
Yeah, I think, without Holloway, it's just trying to find out what works. And I think, obviously, even though you start the game this way, you can change it. And I think if you put those top 6 guys in a hat and pulled out some names, I don't know that there's going to be that much difference. I think that's how important that chemistry was between Holloway, Schenn, and Kyrou. You're not going to replicate that, so, just see what you can do. Now, the one argument that somebody I think could make, and I'm sure you guys have touched on it too, is do you bump Zach Bolduc up to that top 6? And I think you could see some potential for success there. So, maybe we will see that tonight. But the same answer I gave to the fast lane yesterday, I think Bolduc is on the third line. Jim Montgomery's mentioned a few times he just likes that group as a whole.
Yeah, I get it, and they have some chemistry together. I just know once we get to the third period, if it's a close game, they haven't really been playing Joseph that much anyway. So I just wonder if that's something they maybe could have explored. They chose not to. It is what it is. Defensively, they also had a decision to make with Broberg coming back, Parayko back into the lineup as well. There was some questions of, okay, do you bump Letty out? Do you, Alex mentioned, potentially bump Justin Falk out, or is it Tucker who ends up being the odd man out? They're going with the experience. Do you think that's the right call back there?
Yeah, I think so. But when I say that, I think of Tyler Tucker. I think of playoff hockey, and tonight's like a playoff game. Now, don't get me wrong. You're not hoping or looking to drop the gloves tonight and be overly physical. You want to win the game, and I think the Blues have decided that experience gives you the best chance at that. And, Nick Leddy was pretty good, I think, in the top pair. Better than you would expect, right, if you want to put it that way. But I think in the third pair, playing with Ryan Suter, he can be good, and he can bring that experience that you're talking about. So I don't think we've seen the end of Tyler Tucker necessarily, even if you get into the playoffs. But, guys, I've mentioned this a few times. You're talking about 5,500 NHL game, hundreds of postseason games between this 6-person defense.
Yeah, well, and my bigger thing with the Falk one is just you've seen some just uncharacteristic turnovers, and that's the part that you just can't afford to do right now in a make or break. I understand going with experience when you've got 4 guys who have played over 1,000 games, but man, the turnovers and what has been taking place in these last 3, that's what's putting this Blues team on the other side of a win.
Yeah, and I don't want to ignore that, because a lot of times when there are goals against the Blues, I rewind the video 20 seconds. What happened here? Let's see what happened. And a lot of times lately, we've spotted Justin Falk making a turnover or not being aware of a guy, to his side, and all of a sudden the puck's in the back of the net. I think it would have to be egregious errors, mistakes with Justin Falk before they'd even consider taking him out of the lineup.
Especially with this one, too, where it's one game.
He wears a letter. That's another thing, is he's going to get all of the benefit of the doubt, and we're seeing that play out tonight. Jeremy Rutherford joined us in studio here on 101 ESPN. Jared, looking a little bigger picture. Obviously, this game is hugely important. You win in regulation, you're going to the playoffs. Like, point-blank period, it is that important for the team. In terms of how people view this season, what is the importance of tonight's game? Like, how will this season be remembered if they lose versus if they win tonight?
I think it's drastic. I think it is. I think if you clinch tonight on home ice, let's just say you win 4-1, Enterprise is just rocking, you go into the playoffs, and maybe you lose the series 4-2 to Winnipeg, it's going to be viewed as a highly successful season. I realize big picture they put themselves in a bad spot, but they climbed out of it, right? And they won the big game on the last day of the regular season and got into the playoffs and played, the number one team, the President's Trophy, pretty tough and lost in a 6-game series. I think that's going to be viewed very positively. You lose this game on home ice with a chance to clinch, give Calgary, an open door. They either do it, Thursday, whenever. I think that you're going to look back and say, see, that's what this bunch is. When you put them to the test, they had the 12-game winning streak. They put themselves back in contention, but they couldn't win the big game, and changes need to be made. Just one game, I think, can have that different viewpoint.
Do those changes come at the core if you're Doug Armstrong? And I know we're going hypotheticals here.
And all of this is based on you think all of that for the front office even is dependent upon tonight's result?
No, I think that's probably more from the fan/media perspective than it is from the front office. I get asked that question a lot about the core. I think it was in a recent mailbag even. When we talk about can they change out the core? Do they want to change out the core? I always ask the question, which specific players are we talking about? Because, everybody...
And everybody responds Jordan Kyrou.
Yeah, who is the core? I think that with Jordan Kyrou specifically, he's had a good year, right? But would they make a hockey trade if one came along and they felt like it benefited the organization? Yeah, I think they would. I don't think they're going to trade or not trade Jordan Kyrou in 2 months based on tonight's game. It would be big picture how they view him, how they see him helping the organization move forward. And then who's another guy from the core? I mean, we could talk about 2 or 3 guys, but a Braden Shen, he says he doesn't want to go anywhere. He's got the no trade. We know that the no trade flips to a modified this offseason. Maybe they re-engage in that. We don't know. So I don't think from the front office viewpoint tonight is going to make a difference on which direction they go with a few players that we're talking about.
That's what I was wondering, because man, I get it to a degree. You win, you get into the playoffs. It is just one game. It's also the full season's worth of resume, right? If this was enough for you to get into the playoffs. You lose and you miss out. Now it feels a lot different. But it is also just putting so much emphasis on a result in one game. And you play 82 of these things. And really, I feel like you should have the determination today. Going into tonight's game of how do you feel about this group? Is this group truly good enough to get them not just to a playoff contention next year, but to get them back into contending for something even more? And if you believe that today, cool. Then you can build around this group and you go into the offseason and tweak around the edges. If you do not, that's when I think you get a little bit more aggressive, regardless of what the result is in tonight's game or into the postseason.
You're exactly right. I think the difference is that you're not having to decide this summer, are you re-upping these guys? If they're unrestricted free agents, do we keep these guys in the core? Do we see them part of the future? Do we like what they did, resurrecting the season at the end of the year? Yeah, we're going to re-sign Braden Shen. We're going to re-sign Jordan Kyrou. These guys are under contract, so I think that you just base it on the big picture, not tonight, and you go into the offseason thinking, okay, are there some hockey trades available?
Are you hearing anything on Holloway? One way or the other?
Yeah, just that it's going to be a while. I mean, that's the best way I can say it. I think that with the injury, nobody expects him to be back soon, and that I talked to. And I think Jim Montgomery basically confirmed that yesterday when he said that, he was out skating, trying to stick handle before we left on the road trip, but nothing even remotely close to thinking he's going to rejoin the group.
All right, JR, go to the other side with this one tonight, because I think you could have picked 31 other teams, 30 other teams, and people would have been like, yeah, the Blues got a shot. But the fact that it's Utah, people, I think, are panicking because they've had their number. And the bigger one is Clayton Keller and Nick Schmaltz and Logan Cooley. Those are the 3 guys that seem to have the Blues number over these last few years. is there a change in terms of how you handle this game if you're Jim Montgomery? Because I believe he's only coached against Utah once with the Blues.
Yeah, I look at it this way. Like, let's say we didn't know tonight's opponent. This is a couple days ago. We don't know the Blues' last opponent. And we would have said, okay, the Blues are in this situation. Guess who the opponent is? You guys would have all said, right, it's got to be Utah. It's got to be Arizona. Mm-hmm. That's the team that the Blues have, had the bugaboo with. And we looked up the numbers. And, I mean, you look at Arizona / Utah for the past few years, 27th in the league, 24th in the league. But yet the Blues are 10, 11, and 1 against them.
That's crazy.
In the last 5 years. So they've had a tough time and had a really tough time against Schmaltz and Keller. I mean, those numbers that those guys have put up against them are outrageous. Yeah, so when we asked the captain, Braden Shen, that question yesterday, he goes, we're aware. We're aware. But you can't, like he said, you just can't look at the past. Like when this puck drops tonight, it's all about tonight. It's all about the Blues getting back to the game, prior to the last few games.
And Robert Bortuzzo's playing tonight.
I haven't seen
so they're putting him in the lineup for Utah, which,
well,
what a guy to throw in there.
Is that true?
Yeah, he's playing tonight.
Here comes the Bortuzzo blast from the point,
here comes Bobby Ortuzzo with the goal. Jeez.
So last thing that I wanted to get to with you, Jeremy Rutherford joining us here in studio on BK and Ferrario ahead of tonight's Blues versus the Utah Hockey Club matchup. You'll hear that right here in your home of the Blues 101 ESPN beginning at 6. Alex's pregame for you. How do you view this team without Holloway? Because they've lost 3 straight. They haven't looked particularly good, really, in their last 5 or 6 games overall. If you just look at whether it's getting him into their own zone, not getting the same offensive chances, the amount of high danger chances they're allowing right now. How do you view the Blues without Holloway if he's going to be out for a while?
Yeah, so I realize that the Blues have had that next man up, and it's worked for them. I view the Holloway injury as he could be the difference in not winning a series. I think that the Blues can beat Winnipeg without him. They could. But I think that their chances of beating them are so much better with Dylan Holloway. It just has such a trickle-down effect with the lines. And in the playoffs, people say you need 4 lines. Yeah, but I'm going to say you need 3 lines. And I think with Holloway, he allows you to have that. If somebody isn't in the line, I think that they have that with Dylan Holloway. And he just drags so many people with him. And I'm not talking about, like, from the drop of the puck in the playoffs. He's been dragging people for months. And he pulls people along just with his tenacity and his dogged work ethic, and that's what the Blues have been missing here lately without him in the lineup. And so he's your perfect playoff player because he plays physical and he has that skill. I think it's a huge loss, especially if they're without him, however far that they go in the playoffs.
I think he brings out the best in Kyrou.
Yeah.
And that's part of this is you need the best version of Kyrou, and I think the way that you get that is with Dylan Holloway out there, and you don't have that guy, unfortunately, right now. All right, he's Jeremy Rutherford. You could read all of his great work over at The Athletic. He has a piece today that has been posted breaking down where the Blues are at, the storylines heading into tonight's game. He's certainly going to have a great breakdown, I would imagine, later on this week on wherever this game takes us.
Don't oversell the story there.
It'll be fantastic. It'll be one of the top 5 reasons that you should have a subscription over at The Athletic. And if you haven't done so already, what are you waiting for? Get that right now. It is worth the price of admission. Jer, we appreciate the time as always, man. Thanks for hopping in with us. It's Jeremy Rutherford joining us in studio here on BK and Ferrario. Coming up next, we're going to talk about Brendan Donovan. Might be experiencing his breakout campaign. I've got a comparison for you. We've talked about it before. I think it might be really coming true now here on 101 ESPN.
Tanner Hendrickson here. They Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Blues back in action tonight, game number 82 of the regular season as they take on the Utah Hockey Club. If the Blues win in regulation, they clinch their spot in the Stanley Cup playoffs. We'll have pregame coverage tonight starting at 6 o'clock with Alex Ferrario, then puck drop at 7 o'clock with the voice of the Blues, Chris Kerber. And the Cardinals back in action tonight as they have game 2 of their 3-game set with the Houston Astros. 6:45 will be first pitch. Eric Fetty's on the mound for St. Louis. The Sports Update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet, Johnny Londoff Autoplex, CWLondoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Just a ho-hum 4-hit performance yesterday for Brendan Donovan. It's becoming the norm for him. The guy is leading Major League Baseball right now in batting average and in hits. Brendan Donovan, 4 for 4 yesterday with just an unbelievable day overall. He's now batting .391 on the season. Alex, Brendan Donovan, nobody needs to hear like, the guy's really good. Of course, he's a really good player, and I think the text line said this perfectly from the 314. Brendan Donovan broke out with Cardinals fans from the time that he was called up. He's a very steady player. He has not once disappointed, and I don't believe he ever will. Eventually, he probably will, but yeah, I agree with the sentiment. The guy is one of the most consistent players that you'll find in Major League Baseball, and it's why the Cardinals could have had some kind of a king's ransom really over the last couple of years had they made him available. It's also why I always recommended don't make him available. Guy's a winning baseball player. Build around somebody like Brendan Donovan. But Alex, we've made the comparison, since really the beginning of him coming up to the big league club that he is Ben Zobrist reincarnate. The guy plays every position possible. He's now starting for you at shortstop. He can do it all. He's just a really good overall player. Well, Ben Zobrist, at the age of 28, had his legit breakout season. In that year, he hit .297 with an OPS of .950, right? And it ended up being the best year of his career. He never really got close to those numbers again, but at 28 years old, breakout season. Alex, would you guess how old Brendan Donovan is right now?
28.
He is 28 years old
I knew the answer to that.
season. And he has a .985 OPS. Is it possible we're seeing the breakout season similar to what happened with Ben Zobrist, and then over the next 5 to 7 years, similar to Zobrist? Just like a 20% above league average hitter, a consistent 800 OPS type of guy?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely possible. And I mean, again, to reiterate that text, he's already had his breakout to where people were like, whoa, Brendan Donovan's awesome. I mean, his first year, he was 3rd in Rookie of the Year voting. But now I think what you're seeing is an impactful player. Before, it was just a guy that I don't know if anybody knew this was possible. It was kind of like the Cardinals devil magic that they always pull off. Like, where did Brendan Donovan come from at 25 years old? But now watching him take these at-bats and in the scenarios, like he's hitting in the 3-hole for this team this season. Like he is
and
coming
he's hitting
up
like a 3-hole hitter.
Yes, he is coming up with runners in scoring position. He's coming up in clutch situations. He's got power. He's got the ability with speed. He's good defensively. Yeah, I think it's very possible that this could be what Ben Zobrist was. And frankly, I think Brendan Donovan might have a little bit more in the tank there because he is such a bat that I do feel like he's got the potential to have power. He's got the speed. He's got the defense. I don't know, man. Brendan Donovan is just one of those guys. He's always floated around being an impactful player, but now they put him in his first season in the spot that we need you to be impactful, and every single game he's come up with clutch performances.
Ben Zobrist back in this season that I'm talking about, his breakout year 2009, he was a guy that hit cleanup 50 times, hit fifth 45 times that year, played shortstop, second base, right field, even had some innings in center field for them that year. Like, Ben Zobrist could do everything. He could do no wrong. He was really, when people started talking about the Rays doing stuff differently, a lot of that was tied to they just had Ben Zobrist, who was a player unlike really just about anything else that we had seen in Major League Baseball at that time, and quite some time. Really, Secret Weapon played a little bit like that, but this was not only a good defender at 5 different positions, also a hell of a hitter that could be in the middle of your order. And that feels, to me, what's different about Brendan Donovan this year, is that he can do it all defensively. We've known that for a while. He's got this great on-base percentage. He hits for a little more average, I think, than people gave him credit for previously. But now he's also adding in a little bit more of the slug. He's got that even higher batting average right now. He's not going to be a .390 hitter for the season, but could he be like 290, 295? it feels crazy to suggest that, but I don't think it's completely outlandish. T-Bone, where do you land right now on Brendan Donovan and what kind of a season he's potentially capable of given his start? We're 10% of the way through the season now.
Yeah, I think he's capable of raising up that slugging percentage to what we would want from a number 3 hole hitter, because that was my biggest thing when you looked at him, was when he hits in the 3 spot was, hey, does he hit for enough power? And when I say he can raise up his slugging, I don't think it's home runs. I don't know if he's going to be able to raise it up beyond what his career high was of 14. He might be able to get a little bit beyond 15. I think it's the doubles is where he's really going to be able to take advantage
and
of
to
that.
Point, Zobrist had one season in his major league career in which he hit more than 20 home runs.
Exactly. And that feels like it's in the range of outcomes for Brendan Donovan, to where it is, hey, you're a 3-hole hitter, but it's not because you're hitting 30 home runs. It's because you're hitting like 30 to 40 doubles in a
40
season.
40 doubles a year.
Yeah, and like, okay, we can live with that. As long as there is a little bit of pop in that bat that can help drive in runs, because that was my biggest question about it was, is there enough thump in the middle of this lineup? And if Donovan brings a little bit of that slug to it, and we'll see if Arenado kind of bumps his back up. He had 2 extra base hits last night. Now I can look at them and say, okay, I like what you're building. But yeah, I think for Brendan Donovan, I wouldn't be shocked if we end up seeing him have a new career OPS, because I think he's going to bring a little bit more slug just based on doubles.
And this is what I've been trying to get at over the last few years with the Cardinals and their lineup and the way that it's constructed. Like, Nootbaar was never a problem. It was a problem that he couldn't stay healthy, but he was not the issue for the Cardinals. Same thing was true for Brendan Donovan. These are guys that you can have in a winning lineup. The problem was, like, they were being asked to be something that they're not. And Brendan Donovan, I know right now he is producing like a 3-hole hitter, and man, hopefully that just continues for the rest of the season. But they're complementary pieces. If Brendan Donovan is your best player, I'm not sure that you're ever going to be a World Series contender. And I promise you that is not a slight to Donnie. I'm as big of a Brendan Donovan fan as you will find here in St. Louis. I love the guy. I've literally got his jersey at home. But if he's your best player, I think you're probably lacking a bit as a team. The value of guys like Brendan Donovan and Lars Nootbaar is that if they are your 3rd and 4th best players, man, you've got the potential to be a really, really good club, as long as those top 2 guys are able to carry you for the majority of the season. And what the Cardinals might have right now is, like, Ivan Herrera, when he returns, might be one of those top 2 hitters. Wilson Contreras, if he's back to being Wilson Contreras again, could be one of those top 2 hitters for you. Now you add in Nootbaar and Donovan as like the 3 and 4, and you continue to filter out from there, whether it's Mason Wynn or Jordan Walker, Nolan Gorman, like all these different guys. Okay, now you're really building the core group of players that could be a legit contender in Major League Baseball. So they've got the pieces, but so many of them were complementary parts, and they were missing do you have the go-to guy? Because it felt in recent seasons as if you didn't. And now it feels like maybe you do with Contreras and Ivan Herrera, who isn't even playing right now, and they're still finding a way to make this thing work offensively.
Yeah. My only question is, do you still need to have a superstar? Like, can you win if you've just got 2 guys, like you said, that can carry you? Like, I don't know. It's hard when you do these labels, like considered stars, but
sure.
Do you need a guy, like a Kyle Tucker guy?
I think it depends. So are we talking about winning a World Series, or are we talking about like getting to the playoffs and maybe going on a run to like the NLCS? Can you do that without that true, like the Kyle Tucker? I think you can.
Can you do it consistently too? Like, can it be a window?
I don't think so.
Because
I think
that's
it's a
what they're
one-off.
hoping
It's
for.
probably more of a one-off.
Yeah.
But can you have a year where you're pretty damn good and then you catch lightning in the bottle into the postseason? Yeah, I think you probably could.
Yeah.
I don't know that you're a legit World Series contender given what is now the arms race that's taking place in Major League Baseball. But this team could be a hell of a lot of fun to watch, man.
Yep.
And if they end up, if this offense is what it's been, top 5, top 7 in Major League Baseball, the pitching stabilizes the way that, again, the last time and a half really through the rotation it has, you could win 85 to 88 games this year with this kind of a lineup. You get into the playoffs, and then kind of similar to the Blues when they were healthy, can the Blues win a Stanley Cup this year with their full lineup? No, I don't think so. I don't think that was ever in their range of outcomes. Could they win a series and then maybe make it interesting in the second round? Yeah. I think they could do that. And I think that's probably more of what I'm talking about here with the Cardinals.
And that's why the one-off season can be good, because this Blues season will feel kind of like a one-off, but you hope that it's the opening of a window. And if this is just the one-off and you're successful with it, you make the playoffs, you get beaten a wild card or in the NLDS, then the hope is, cool, we saw where our weaknesses were, go upgrade them. Go make this now. The window is officially open, because that's the whole point of falling into something like this, right? You start that opening of the window and you say, now we've got the tools to actually do some damage.
T-Bone asked this earlier today. I thought it was a good question. Just last thing here on Brendan Donovan before we dive into the junk drawer coming up on the other side. He mentioned, hey, Brendan Donovan leads Major League Baseball right now. He's 25 hits through the first 16 games of the season. Where does that rank among Cardinals in recent years? Like, are there other guys that have had more hits through the first 16 games than Donnie? The answer is, couple. But it's been a minute. So in the last 50 years, Alex, last 50 years,
okay,
there have only been 2 Cardinals through 16 games that had more hits than Brendan Donovan's 25. It's Matt Carpenter in 2015, who finished that season setting the franchise mark for doubles in a season. He had 26 hits through the first 16 games. And Fernando Vina, back in 2000, who had 27 hits through the first 16 games, he finished that season batting .300 for the year.
Freaking loved Fernando Vina.
So since they lowered the mound, those are the only 2 guys that had more hits at this point in the season than Brendan Donovan does. Scott Rowland in 2004 also had 25 hits. So did Edgar Renteria, your guy, back in 2003, had 25 hits through this point. And Willie McGee in 1990 had 25 hits through the first 16 games of the season. Brendan Donovan in some rare company right now.
I'd say that's some really good company to be in, too, in terms of the trajectory for your career.
Yeah.
Carpenter, Rowland, Renteria, Willie McGee, and then Fernando Vina.
He was good, too. It was just short stay in St. Louis.
One-off.
Yeah, Vina was good. He was an all-star at one point.
No
Had a couple
recollection
of...
that was with Renteria. It was he and Renteria at second and short.
But, yeah, I would say the other guys are a little different. Like, you go back in this list, Carp, Rowland, Renteria, McGee, Kurt Flood, Lou Brock, Stan Musial did it like 6 times, and Ken Boyer. That's the last 70 years of Cardinals baseball guys that have done this. So
Fire.
Most of them go by one name for the Cardinals, and Donovan is close to being able to do that with Donnie. All right, coming up in about 15 minutes or so, the Blues have a chance to put an end to the ghosts of seasons past, given who the opponent is going into tonight's game. We'll talk about that at 1 o'clock. The junk drawer is coming up next. T-Bone's got a list for us here on BK and Ferrario. All right, let's dive into the junk drawer with Alex and T-Bone on BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. In less than 10 minutes, we're going to go back to the Blues. They have a chance to put an end to the ghosts of seasons past tonight with their game against the Utah Hockey Club. We'll explain here on BK and Ferrario. But right now, it's the junk drawer, and T-Bone has another list for us today. T-Bone, what do you got?
Yeah, do you guys want to guess the most popular walk-up songs in Major League Baseball?
Man.
Oh, I'm so not going to get this.
What do you think number one, the most popular song?
I have no idea.
I'll give you a hint. There's quite a bit of country on here.
Okay, that makes sense. Is it like recent country, or are we talking like old school?
So like Chris Stapleton on the list. There's mostly new school. There's one or two that are old school.
Okay.
Oh, man.
Is there a Morgan
Wallen? There's got to be a Morgan Wallen song.
There is not a Morgan. Or yes, there is. There is one Morgan Wallen song.
There's got to be a Luke Combs song.
There is a Luke Combs song.
It's probably the one from the Twisters movie. What was it called?
Ain't No Love in Oklahoma.
Yep, that one.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
that's like
fifth on the list.
that's a really popular song right now. Trying to think of some no Zach Brown band. Do people still
No.
play Chicken Fried?
No Zach Brown. No Zach Brown.
Blake Shelton.
Oh,
There
play that
is
Blake
one
Shelton.
Blake Shelton.
Okay, I'm starting.
Give us the songs whenever we see them.
Okay, God's Country, Blake
Okay.
Shelton.
Oh, yeah.
What number is that?
is fourth.
Jason Aldean.
No Aldean on the list.
Country Roads.
Who was somebody? Oh, you said Morgan Wallen. So
Nobody better
just to
sing
give you
Country
Morgan
Roads.
Wallen, Morgan Wallen's Cowgirls is on
Okay.
this list as well. That is near the bottom.
I think I'm out on country artists. Garth Brooks. No Garth Brooks.
No Garth Brooks. I told you. So the number one song, because I told you Chris Stapleton was in it, is Chris Stapleton's White Horse. That is the most popular walk-up song in Major League Baseball in 2025.
Okay.
There's an older country artist on here.
And older than Garth Brooks.
Yeah, old. Like he's dead.
Conway Twitty.
No.
What do we got?
He's a classic. It is Johnny Cash's "God's Gonna Cut You Down."
yeah. Sure.
Oh, that's
That
a
is
really
the
good one.
second most popular song in Major League Baseball.
That
and
is
when
a
I call
hell of a
these
song.
walk-up songs, by the way, this isn't just batters. This is pitchers in their kind of intro songs as well.
That's a hell of a song. I'm a little disappointed in myself that I
All
didn't
right,
think
so
of that.
number one is Chris Stapleton. Number two, Johnny Cash. Number three.
Billy Squire.
Okay, sure. Yeah,
Not familiar with that.
that's a new one.
The Stroke. That is third on the list.
Nope.
We talked about the next two, which was Blake Shelton's God's Country, Luke Combs' Ain't No Love in Oklahoma. And now you start to get into a little bit of that kind of rap, hip-hop, I'd say.
Any Eminem?
No Eminem on the list.
Wait, you said who was the third one?
Billy Squire.
Okay, I mixed that up with somebody else. That is not new at all. You said four was Blake Shelton. Five was
Luke
Ain't No
Combs.
Country.
Yep.
I
Number
couldn't even
6,
tell you any rap artists
Travis
today.
Scott.
Okay,
with
I knew him.
Fine.
Don't know the song, but I know Travis Scott.
Sure.
And then there's Stevie Nicks. I'm not Edge of 17. I'm not familiar.
Stevie
You're not
Nicks?
familiar with Stevie Nicks?
No.
I'm surprised
Really?
by that.
I thought you would have been familiar with Stevie Nicks.
Just because you lean more on like old school
yeah,
rock.
like you're old rock.
Maybe if I heard the song, I'd
you
recognize
probably
it.
would. Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't. Edge of 17 is that one. Alice in Chains' Rooster is another popular one among the players.
Okay.
Bad Bunny's Monaco
Okay.
is up there. Big X Thou Plug, Back on My BS.
Okay. And you lost me.
I'm gonna need you to read that one more time.
Okay, the Big X That Plug.
Can you spell that?
BIG, capital X, THA, PLUG.
Okay.
Big X That Plug.
Yeah,
That is an,
Back on
that's
My
an artist.
BS is a popular. You know who, by the way, which Cardinal uses that song as their walk-up?
I haven't been this year.
I'm going to dislike him.
You'll hear it tonight because he'll be leading off the home half of the first, Lars Nootbaar.
Okay.
Oh, man, I like Lars, too.
They've also got Cody Jinks is on here, Loud and Heavy, Gangstar, Work, Kid Cudi with Alive, and then we mentioned Morgan Wallen, and then the last one is Ted, I think Nugent, Stranglehold.
You don't know Ted Nugent?
No. There are a couple of these are with Cardinals players. So I mentioned Nootbaar's, Herrera, who you won't hear tonight. He goes with Bad Bunny's Monaco. And I think those were the only two Cardinals on the list that have them are part of the most popular walk-up songs in Major League Baseball. Kids these days.
I was going to say, I knew about like 5 of
Yeah.
those.
I
maybe.
saw
Most
this
of these
list.
are
I didn't
old
know.
school. I'm a little surprised that there's not more recent songs on this. I mean, it's really just the only new stuff is Travis Scott, Bad Bunny.
A lot of the country's new, though.
And a couple of the country stuff, but even those are like not.
I mean, Blake Shelton's not new.
No.
And Johnny Cash
Stapleton's
obviously
not
isn't.
particularly new.
I don't know when that one, but Stapleton's been around. The other ones.
Yeah. It is not as recent as I would have expected it to be because the game skews younger, right? Like most of the players in Major League Baseball are like 26 years old or younger. Yeah. So I'd have just assumed there would have been a little bit more new school.
It's got a nice balance that I expected because I figured there'd be a little country. I figured there'd also be a little.
I assumed it'd be
hip hop.
I knew there'd be a lot of rap and country
because I didn't expect a lot of rock and roll. There's like 2 rock and roll songs on here, so that doesn't surprise me.
Do you know what your song would be if you were to have a walk-up song for Major League Baseball? If you had to do a game tomorrow, what would you say? Hey, I need this to be my song. You guys know my song.
Thunderstruck from AC/DC.
Really?
Yeah.
It's a good one.
It's either that one or it would be an Eminem song.
I'm sticking with Jukebox Hero. What's your song?
Welcome to the Black Parade.
The one that he jumps up and down about.
Is that the one? You'd be too excited you couldn't bat.
That would definitely.
It's my song.
Anytime that comes on, I'm ready.
Johnny Cash, God's gonna cut you down. That's one that.
That's a good one.
That hits almost every single time I hear it.
Somebody said T-Bone would have gone with Imagine Dragons.
Oh, they were solid. I remember.
Oh my God, T-Bone
would have gone with
too good of taste in music for that.
T-Bone would have gone with a Magic School Bus theme song.
That one brings back memories because when I was in high school, I was the PA announcer for our baseball team, and I had the iPod with me that had all the guys' songs. I think like 3 of them had Imagine Dragons songs as their walk-up music.
All right, 314.
Someone said when you get a good walk-up song, you wouldn't want to change that. That is false. Matt Adams, I remember one year, he changed his song every single game because he was going through a scoreless drought. And so he would pull the media and ask, what song should I pick today?
Somebody on the text line said BK would have gone with Firework by Katy Perry. Another says, I assume BK would have went with Girls Just Want to Have Fun. What is going on the text line right now? Somebody else said I would have assumed Nickelback.
I do love Nickelback. I do Nickelback. Burn It to the Ground, that's a great one.
This took a real turn. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. If you guys have any thoughts on who you thought we would have gone with for our song, for our walk-up song, you can get those in right now over there. You can always watch us on YouTube as well at youtube.com/101ESPN STL. But coming up next, the Blues have a chance to put an end to the ghosts of seasons past. We'll talk about it here on BK and Ferrario. Alex, I'm going to read you a little bit of the piece today from Jeremy Rutherford over on The Athletic. In the past 5 seasons, here's where Arizona/Utah's franchise finished in the NHL overall standings. 22nd, 31st, 27th, and 27th. And then last season, 19th in their first season as the Utah Hockey Club. Yet, in those 5 years, the Blues' combined record against them is 10, 11, and 1. They have had horrible fortunes against the Utah Hockey Club. They're going up against them again tonight in the final game of the regular season. Pre-game coverage starts at 6. Puck drop for this one at 7. And if they win this game, the St. Louis Blues will be representing the Central Division as a wild card team in this year's playoffs. If they do not win this game, well, all hell potentially breaks loose. Alex, this is an opportunity for the Blues, given what they have had struggles-wise against Utah, given what this season has been overall with the roller coaster of emotion, given what their lack of success has been against Schmaltz and Keller. They can put an end to the ghosts of seasons past with a win tonight in regulation against Utah. What do you make of the opponent? What do you make of the situation that is in front of the Blues tonight?
It's a tough one. Like, you start with the opponent. To me, this comes down to, can you stop Keller and Schmaltz? This doesn't come down to Utah being a problem. It comes down to Schmaltz and Keller being a problem. Since Schmaltz and Keller have been a part of the Arizona Coyotes/Utah Hockey Club organization, they have played a total of 26 games against the Blues. They have combined for a total of 60 points against the Blues, and they're a plus 18 against the Blues. They have been the kryptonite to whatever goaltender goes in between the pipes, whatever defenseman is on the ice, and whatever coach is behind the bench, because they've gone through 3 of them taking on that duo. And now you add into the fact that they've got Logan Cooley, the centerman, who didn't play in the previous game against the Blues. This is going to be this is probably the worst opponent that the Blues could have gone up against at the end of the season, is Utah, because they've had their number. They're not in a playoff spot. They've got nothing else to play for. And frankly, they know that they've got the Blues number. But this also comes down to the Blues trying to forget about what JR told us, what Shen said. You don't worry about the past. You're trying to be a playoff team. They are eliminated from the playoffs. You need to go out there and exert dominance. Get to the front of the net. Make sure that their defensemen can't handle you. And you've been one of the best teams since the Four Nations break defensively, specifically at even strength. That means you've gone up against the McKinnons. You've gone up against the Winnipeg Jets, the Dallas Stars. You've gone up against the best of the best for the last 20-plus games. Keller and Schmaltz should not be an issue for this Blues team. But to me, this is going to be the toughest game that they're going to have to play through this last 10 to 12 game stretch that they've been through, because Utah, you get the yips against a team that you typically know you don't have your best games against.
They've also been playing good hockey. Utah has points in 8 of their last 9 games. This is not some team that's limping into the finish line and has been bad all season, and you don't expect much out of them, and they're all doing the 1-2-3 Cancun situation to just put an end to their year. Yeah, they're on the back end of a back-to-back, but they've got their starting goalie who started, I guess, like 22 of their last 23 games of the regular season. That's going to be in net for them tonight against the Blues. They are only 5 points back of the Blues because of the way that they've been playing lately. And again, as I said, 8 points in 8 of their last 9 games, and that hasn't been some fluky competition. They got a point against Florida on the road. They beat Calgary head-to-head. They beat Winnipeg head-to-head. They beat Dallas on the road a little while ago. So they've been beating good teams. This is a team that can come in here and beat you. And the Blues have not been playing great hockey really over the last 10 days, I would say. They got fortunate there at the end of their winning streak, and then lately it just hasn't looked the same. They haven't been getting out on that forecheck like you were talking about. They haven't been getting to the front of the net. They haven't been clearing out their front of the net either. And now you're going to have to do this without Dylan Holloway. It's not an easy task, man. This is going to be a really difficult game for them tonight, but Jordan Binnington's in net.
Yeah.
And when Benner is in net in these kinds of games, you expect him to find a way to will you to victory. Yeah. That's what he's in there for.
Yeah, this is the guy that every single season, regardless of the noise of if he is a good goaltender in the regular season or a bad goaltender in the regular season, you say, I want Binnington in between the pipes for a must-win game.
Yep.
And now he's in it right now. And there's no more. This is why I said yesterday, it's like I feel like they might have a little bit more calm for this game than what they did against Edmonton and Winnipeg. Their backs are officially against the wall in this one. Now, I know they're still technically in the driver's seat, but they know that if they lose this game, Calgary can push them out of the playoffs. Edmonton, there was still that road trip. There were still games that could have gone in the Blues' favor. Now it's not this. And Jordan Binnington is the reason why in a game like this, he's the one that you want in there. And he found a way to beat Utah the last time. You're going to have to be great, though, specifically on the power play, because Utah's coming in 11 for 22 in their last, their last 10 games. So
you're saying on the PK for the Blues?
Yeah, PK. And that's your goaltender's got to be your best penalty killer.
314-399-9646 is the Air Cover Service text line from the 314. Guys, BK's hexing the Blues right now. Tell us how they can win, not how they'll lose. Sure. Binnington is amazing in net. Your defense looks the way that it did whenever you had all those guys healthy, and it looks the way that it did for the vast majority, even when they weren't healthy during that winning streak. And offensively, you get back to what you were. Yes, you don't have Dylan Holloway in the game. We all understand that, and that's a huge injury to overcome. But everybody else that you would want as part of your forward groups, they're there. So you go out there and you get the top line experience that we had seen so much of. Robert Thomas drives the offense. It ends up snugger. It actually fits like a glove in that second line group. And Kyrou becomes the best version of himself once again by being reunited with Shin. Maybe Shin gets back to his game with Kyrou. And then the 70s line is more like what they were at the beginning of the winning streak as opposed to what they've been the last week or two. It's not hard to explain how they could win this game. The Blues should win this game. They are the better hockey club, and they have much more on the line going into this one. So there is no lack of intensity. There's no lack of urgency or anything like that. They're well coached. I don't have a ton of questions about the Blues going into this one. It's just a really difficult matchup, and it has been a difficult matchup for them for the better part of 5 years now. So I personally find the more interesting conversation on what issues do the Utah Hockey Club represent for you? Because we all know what the Blues are. We know where they're at as a team. We've all watched them for 6 months and how they've come to be this version of themselves. So, we know how they can win this one. I'm curious to see what it looks like tonight. Yeah. And I'm fascinated to find out if they can actually overcome the loss of Dylan Holloway. That, to me, is the number one question that lingers over tonight's game.
Yeah, well, and I mean, those two conversations align. What you need to do to win is what Utah consistently find ways to give you problems with. It's speed, it's their ability to keep the puck in the offensive zone, and it's them not allowing you to get to the front of the net. That's been the narrative every time the Blues have played against the Arizona Coyotes / Utah, with the exception of a couple of games. Utah uses all of their speed because they're really good down the middle. They can beat you off the rush, and they hem you in your own zone. And do you find a way to avoid that? Here's a fun one that the text line just put in. Who do you think Winnipeg's rooting for? Because I think Winnipeg's rooting for St. Louis. Without Holloway.
I think so, too. Nobody wants to hear this because you don't want me to crap all over your team, and I'm not going to do that. But the Blues are a different team without Dylan Holloway, and if I'm Winnipeg, I want to play them.
And the reason people didn't want to play the Blues in that 12-game win streak is why I think teams are a little worried about Calgary, because Calgary I think they've lost 3 games in their last 10, and without Holloway.
If you want me to be honest, I don't think Winnipeg really cares.
No.
Either way. I think they view it as we're going to beat either of these two teams, and it will be the year that we finally go on potentially a run in the postseason, as opposed to just getting there, being one of the best teams in the regular season, and falling on our faces once again, right? The classic regular season team can't get it done when it matters the most. I think they view it as these teams aren't as good as us. Both of them have serious limitations, and we'll go out there and win. But if they had to root for one, I think they'd probably root for the Blues, because right now the Blues are not the team that they were during that 12-game winning streak.
And they just saw them without Holloway. It's not like it's kind of unknown, right. How would we match up with the Blues if they didn't have Holloway? They just did it, and they won. So I think they are rooting for the Blues. I know players and teams and everybody we've talked to has said, they think they could be anybody when they get the playoffs. I think they're kidding themselves.
I think
teams know.
I think they could have with Holloway.
I think teams know. I agree with that with the Blues. What I'm saying is Winnipeg going with the whole, we can beat anybody we run into. I think everybody is kidding themselves. If you see a team that gets hot and gets into the playoffs, you worry about that team.
Sure.
And I think if you don't, then I think you're just kidding yourself.
Somebody on the text line from the 316 said, are we getting Holloway back soon? I don't think so, guys. We don't know. The honest answer is we don't know. But at this point, if Holloway had any chance of returning early on in the playoffs, you'd probably see him tonight. And it's pretty clear he's not returning tonight. So my guess on this, and it is purely a guess, nobody around the team is talking publicly. My guess would be no. That's where I fall on it right now.
Yeah. if he was closer to playing, probably would have gone on that road trip with the team. The fact that he stayed back, this is the time of year you have to understand, too, that everything is played down. Everything is considered day to day, week to week, because they don't put their chips in the middle with playoffs and injuries. Vegas just tweeted out what they're doing tonight against Calgary.
Are they resting a bunch of guys?
Yeah. There's no Pietrangelo, no Hannafin, no Eichel, no Stone, and they're not starting Aiden Hill. This is why you need to not worry about what Calgary can do.
Dude,
just get your own job done.
You have nobody to blame but yourself if you don't make the playoffs.
Yep.
You have lost 4 straight games, potentially.
Yep. Against Utah and Seattle down the stretch. I could hear the argument with Edmonton and Winnipeg.
Well,
Seattle and Utah is not excusable.
That's on you. They didn't have Draisaitl either.
I was going to say, I wouldn't hear the argument on Edmonton because, sure, they had McDavid. They played with 5 defensemen that whole game.
It's true.
I've never even seen that before prior to that game.
Half their team was out, and they didn't have Leon Draisaitl. Like, listen, man, you had your opportunities down the stretch here to be able to take care of business. Go do it. Go do it. You've got your chance tonight against Utah. You've got everybody but one player available to you on the ice tonight. You've got your dude in net. Like, you're pretty well rested. You last played on Saturday. They played last night. They're on the road coming here. You get the last chance. Like, everything is there for the taking. You just got to go do it, man. So you just won 12 games in a row. All we're asking for is one. Just one. You got to win 3 periods, and you're going into the playoffs, and you get to match up against Winnipeg, and we'll see how they match up against them in the playoffs. But, yeah, just take care of business tonight. Don't worry about Calgary. That cannot be in their thought process right now because you're right, Alex. Like, the other teams are going to lay down for Calgary potentially because they don't have a whole lot to play for.
Especially the Kings on Thursday because they clinched home ice last night with the win over Edmonton.
They're playing for nothing.
Yep.
And Vegas is doing the exact same thing right now. All right, coming up in 15 minutes, we got to talk a little bit about the Cardinals' rotation. It's stabilizing, but I talked earlier today about how much I believe in this offense. Are you believing in the rotation? We'll get into that in 15 minutes. Better to forget it coming up next. 314-399-9646 is the Your Comfort Service text line for Bet It or Forget It. You guys give us a scenario. We will tell you if we are betting it or forgetting it here on 101 ESPN. All right, let's start out with this one. Boys, bet it or forget it. Jimmy Snuggerud scores a goal tonight for the St. Louis Blues.
Damn it, that was mine.
Jimmy Snuggerud does not yet have a goal, but tonight is his first career goal in a game where he needs it the most against the Utah Hockey Club to send the Blues into the playoffs. Bet it or forget it.
That was mine, and I'm betting it because I think it's happening. Tonight's the night he scores. He was building, nearly had a goal versus Seattle. He had that slot shot from the pass to Thomas, and he got the pad save from Grubauer. Yeah, I think he's scoring tonight, and I'll even one up, and I think his will be the game winner.
Oh,
That's fun.
I will forget it. I don't think he'll get his first goal tonight. I think tonight's where you see more of those core pieces that have been here a while. If you're going to win, be the ones that show out. Like, I'm thinking Jordan Kyrou has a big game. I'm thinking like 2 goals potentially for Kyrou tonight.
Nice. I
I was thinking Thomas.
Yeah, okay, and exactly. See, like I could see Thomas having a huge
Top
game.
dudes
being
are your
such
top
a-
dudes.
Yeah, top dudes are your top dudes, and Snuggerud's not there yet as a top dude. He's there more as a complimentary piece. He'll be there in a couple years, but I'll forget it for now.
I'm going to bet it tonight. I think he gets a goal. I think he gets a goal in the power play. I think that's the way that it comes through for him. I'm not going to claim the game winner. That's all for Alex there, but I do think Jimmy Snuggerud will score tonight for the Blues. Alex, what do you got for us?
Skip over me, please. I have to come up with a new
T-Bone,
one.
what do you got for us?
Guys, bet it or forget it. We're all in on Brendan Donovan, so better forget it. He'll receive MVP votes this season.
Ooh, top 10, like he just has to
Just
get votes, right?
MVP votes, because we talked about Matt Carpenter's big season. He got MVP votes 3 times in his career. You mentioned Ben Zobrist. Ben Zobrist got MVP votes 3 times in his career.
And Carpenter got the first MVP votes was that year he hit 55 doubles.
Yeah,
that was
the
his
year that we're talking
27-year
about.
season.
And I'm not even saying top 10, by the way. I'm just saying MVP votes, because Zobrist only finished top 10 once.
I'm going to say bet it. I think the WAR numbers, and I know nobody likes them, but when it's helping your guy, you can go ahead and love them all you want. I think he will get consideration once again for the utility Gold Glove. I think he's going to have a pretty decent average this year. Because of where he's batting in the order, he's going to get a ton of opportunities for RBIs, which is not something you typically would say about Brendan Donovan. So maybe that boosts up. Typically in his career, he's been like 50 to 70. Maybe you get into that like 90 range this year in terms of the RBI numbers. So yeah, I'll say the traditionalists will see the RBI numbers, and that'll help his case there, and the average. And then for the more new school voters, you'll potentially have a higher wins above replacement, and you'll talk about some of the defensive value that's there as well. So I will say bet it. Long-winded way of saying bet it.
I'll say bet it too. I think BK nailed the part for me of why is where he's hitting in the lineup. I think he's going to, as he stays healthy, he's going to be the 3-hole hitter, and he's going to get these ideal opportunities, and he seems to always come up with the clutch performances.
I'll say bet it as well. I think he'll be like where Zobrist was twice in his career, which is like that 15 to 20 range, which means he basically got
a couple of votes.
A couple
People
of
put you on the
couple
ballot.
5th place votes, whatever. I don't remember how low they go when it comes to the MVP balloting. I think he could get there because I think his slug's going to come up this year because of the doubles, as I said. He's going to have a little bit better RBI numbers than I was expecting coming into the season because the guys on base, or the guys in front of him, are getting on base. And then his WAR will be inflated. And I think WAR is a stupid stat, but I think it will be inflated this year because of the defense that he provides. And he can play multiple positions defensively.
And whether you think it's a stupid stat or not, it is something that people reference whenever they're voting on MVP stuff because a lot of it is writers, and they just frankly can't see these guys every day. So you go to, okay, what's the easiest way to measure an overall player's performance? That is one of the immediate go-tos for people, right or wrong.
Okay.
Wrong. It's wrong.
I've
but
got one
yes.
now. Better forget it. We do not see Joel Hofer in the playoffs
Bet it.
Bet it.
at all.
You're going to live and die with Jordan Binnington. That's your dude. If you see Joel Hofer, it speaks to the fact that you're done. The moment that you put him on the ice, you have lost. Because Jordan Binnington has to be the reason that if you're going to go on any kind of a run this year in the playoffs, in a series, in multiple series, Jordan Binnington will be, I believe, the #1 reason why. So I'm betting it. You will not see Joel Hofer in this playoffs.
I'm betting it as well, and I agree with everything that BK said. Like, when you get to the playoffs, you're living and dying by your guy. And I think if you turn to Joel Hofer, it shows Montgomery blinked. Panicked, whatever you want to call it. He flinched. If he's turning to Joel Hofer, it means he's lost confidence in his group of guys. And I don't think he will do that. So I would bet this. That's why I had, like, I know we talked about earlier of, you thought maybe they should have gone with Hofer in that Seattle game. You're already in playoff mode, man. To me, you are already living and dying by Jordan Binnington. Binnington's either getting you clinched in the playoffs tonight, or Binnington might be a big reason why you might be going home if Calgary takes care of business.
Yep. I'm betting that one, too. You don't see him at all. I still would have started Hofer in that Seattle game, but yeah, now's when Binnington rides the rest of the way. And I still think Binnington can steal you a series if you get in.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Better to Forget It. No, for some reason, normally I'd go to Alex and then you, but we switched up the order. That's why I looked at you. All right, Better to Forget It. Nathan Walker ends up becoming a key contributor for the Blues tonight with his physicality.
I don't know if he will specifically. That fourth line will. That fourth line was not the same line that they were in at least the last two games. I think they were good in the Winnipeg Jets game, but Oilers, it didn't feel like they were, and then Seattle, they were not. Tonight, especially, is going to be one of those nights because you're going to be setting the tone against Utah, and that line's going to get some matchups. So, yeah, I'll bet this.
I'll bet this as well. And it's not because I'm thinking the Blues will get to a slow start, but I could see where if maybe early on in the game, they're having trouble getting to the front of the net. Things are kind of starting to deflate a little bit in the building. Because I think this matchup tonight, because of the history the Blues have with Utah, I can see early on if the Blues get down like 1-0, where you start to have that, oh my God, here we go again moment. And I think the Blues will experience that. And I think Nathan Walker will drag them back into the fight, what he's done all season long.
All right, Better to Forget It, guys. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 316. Better to Forget It. Utah will score 2 or more goals tonight.
Forget it.
Think they held to 1 or fewer?
Yeah. I think they'll get 1. If they get more than 1, it's because the Blues have taken too many penalties.
I'm going to say bet it. I think they score 2.
Yeah, I'm thinking Blues 3-2, so I was going to say bet it.
I was thinking Blues 3-1.
I like it.
I think it'll be a relatively low-scoring game.
3-2. The second one from Snuggie.
Maybe 4-2. Utah ends up with the empty net, or the Blues end up with the empty netter to potentially put them over the top. But you're feeling it's a tight game down the stretch. Here's a quick question for you, Alex, on this. I heard JR, I think, talking about this yesterday on the Fast Lane. Let's say the Blues are tied 3-3. There's a minute left in the game. How do you handle that if you're Jim Montgomery?
Get to overtime and get the point. I mean, I know people don't want to hear it, but you need 2 points in this game. If you get too risky with it, and I'm assuming you're insinuating pull the goaltender.
Do you consider it?
No, absolutely not. Because there's a spot where you could get to the playoffs. If you lose an overtime or a shootout tonight and Calgary loses in any fashion, the Blues clinch a playoff spot. Is it going to happen? Probably not for Calgary, but no way, shape, or form do I pull the goaltender. I am going out there, and I am, if there's 1 minute left and we're tied, go get the second point in overtime.
If you win in overtime and Calgary wins their final 2 games of the season, they get in.
They have to win both in regulation.
Correct.
Yeah.
If
you lose in regulation because you pull the goalie, Calgary just has to win their 2 games no matter what the fashion.
They need 3 points.
Yep.
Calgary just needs 3 points if you don't pick up a point. Yeah. That's why if you pick up a point tonight and still lose, and Calgary loses in any fashion, they can't catch you because you still have that tiebreaker if they lose in any fashion. So that's why.
I was just curious. I didn't know how you guys would handle it.
No, absolutely. And
I don't have the cut ready, but I would have clicked the Joey going, PK, no.
That's a bad take.
You're crazy. You're crazy.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely not.
Yeah. No way in hell would I pull the goalie.
No.
I wouldn't even, if it gets 5 minutes to go and it's tied 2-2, for example, I think they even throw out their best defensive lineup. I think you sit Kyra the final 5 minutes of the third period.
That I'm not doing.
No, you
guarantee the
win,
point.
Dude.
I think you got to guarantee a point. You got to minimum get a point.
You have to win this game.
You have to get a point.
You have to do everything that you can to win this game in any way possible.
You do, but T-Bone is partially right. You cannot have a turnover, but I'm not going to sit my best player offensively in a tie game. If he turns the puck over, he's going to wear it.
Joseph doesn't see the ice in the final 5 minutes in that scenario.
Yeah.
Joseph doesn't see the final 20 minutes of ice.
To me, Falk wouldn't see the ice in the final 5 minutes.
I'd agree. Depending on what the first 2 periods look like, I would bump Letty or a Suitor up and drop that down.
Kyra's seeing the ice. Kyra's been playing really well.
Yeah,
man.
and if he turns the puck over and you lose the game in regulation, then cool. It's the same thing with Binnington and net. I lost with my best player on the ice
100%.
Offensively. But no, there's no way.
To me, not seeing the ice in the final 5 minutes.
That one I disagree with. If he's playing well, I'm going to put him out there. To win the game, you've got to roll 4 lines. It's the only way you're doing this. And even if you've got to double shift a couple of guys, I'm not going to. The moment you play defensive hockey is the moment Utah beats you.
This is a fun one. Would you consider pulling the goalie in overtime if you had possession of the puck?
Ooh.
That is a really fun one.
That one, I think.
You've earned the point.
That one, I think I would. Oh, man, but God, you're forfeiting, and how bad. No, you can't do that if you're Jim Montgomery, because if you lose because of 1 point, it looks awful.
I know what T-Bone's answer is to this. No chance he's doing
T-Bone's
that.
not
There's
doing that.
way too much risk. But it's the classic, are you looking at the upside or the downside of the decision that you make? What is the likelihood of the upside pay?
Plus, you've been so good at 3-on-3 that I'm not going to, to avoid a shootout
part of
would
that
be.
3-on-3 success is Dylan Holloway.
Yeah. Well, but also part of the 3-on-3 success has been Colton Parayko's play, Broberg's play, Thomas's play. Like, you've got guys who can dominate at 3-on-3.
I think it's too risky.
I
would,
is.
because if you win in overtime or the shootout, then what ends up happening is Calgary has to win in regulation the next
Each
two.
of the next two.
But if you end up pulling the goalie, for example, and you end up giving up a goal because you have the net empty, then Calgary just has to win the remaining 2 games no matter.
I forgot. If you pull the golie and the other team scores, you lose the overtime point. I forgot about that.
Oh, yeah, and there's that stupid
I forgot
rule,
about
too.
that, too.
I totally forgot about that rule. That's on me.
I forgot
should
about
have
that, too.
remembered that. It's a fun topic of conversation. Obviously,
regardless,
you
though, you're not doing
you
that.
You can't lose that.
Yeah, regardless, you're not doing that. The goalie will not be pulled unless there is a delayed penalty on Utah.
Just
Plain and simple.
Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll get into the rewind. But next, the Cardinals' rotation is stabilized. Can you sustain it? We'll talk about that next here on 101 ESPN.
Tanner Hendricks is here with a Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Blues back in action tonight as they wrap up the regular season, game number 82, as they host the Utah Hockey Club. If the Blues win in regulation, they will clinch their spot in the Stanley Cup playoffs. We'll bring in coverage tonight starting at 6 o'clock with Alex Ferrario. Puck drop at 7 o'clock with the voice of the Blues, Chris Kerber. And the Cardinals back in action tonight. Game 2 of their 3-game set with the Houston Astros. 6:45 will be first pitch. Eric Fetty is on the mound for St. Louis. The Sports Update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. The Cardinals pitching has stabilized over the last, really, 10 days or so. Sonny Gray was great again last night. Really his best outing of the season. Looked more like himself. Went out there, had the velo that you typically expect, swing and miss. Everything was there for him. And Alex, if you look at the rotation, really, since that blow-up by Miles Mikolas, you've had some pretty good outings. Matthew Liberatore, a couple of good outings in there. Sonny Gray now with a great outing. Andre Palante on Friday was outstanding against the Philadelphia Phillies. Even Saturday, now, it wasn't great. I'm not going to hype this up to be something that it wasn't, but Mikolas was fine. You can win if Mikolas gives you that version as opposed to, whatever that was in Boston when he got destroyed against the Red Sox. We mentioned at the beginning of the show today, Alex, that I'm very much a believer in this offense. What we have seen so far, you look at it, they have an 800 OPS through the first 16 games of the season. And if you look at the last decade of teams that have done that, almost all of them went on to be top 10 offenses in the sport that year. The pitching to me is a little different. I don't have that level of faith in them, but I do think this is closer maybe to what I expected out of them. No, not a bunch of scoreless innings out of the starters like Libby and Palante and now Gray yesterday. I'm not expecting that. I do think this rotation could be average, though. I think Sonny Gray is a really good starter. I think Matthew Liberatore has a chance to be a decent number 3 starter for you. Fetty, I think, is fine. I don't want to overstate what he is. I think he's fine. I think he could be a low to mid 4s ERA by the end of the year. And if you average that out over a season, it's basically a quality start every time that he goes out there. That gives you a chance to win. So can it stabilize? Is this sustainable? I think maybe. I don't think it's going to be as good as what we've seen recently, though. How do you feel about the Cardinals' rotation right now as they get ready for a 6-man starting on Wednesday, Alex?
Kind of in the same line as you. Back at the beginning of the show when we were talking about the offense and you brought up the 2016 Cardinals team and how good that offense was, you looked at that pitching staff, and then that was their downfall. That's why they weren't a very good team, was because their pitching was bad.
Correct.
I think your pitching's better than what they had that year. I mean, Waino with a 4.6 ERA. Martinez was their best pitcher. Mike Lee, Jaime Garcia, Michael Wacha.
I think if you're a skeptic, that is your concern, though, is like Carlos was the de facto number 1 that year. And that is effectively what Sonny Gray is for them this season. You can do a kind of 1-to-1 comparison.
But I think Gray is so much better than what Carlos was. Like, I look at Carlos that year and I think, hey, maybe Fetty can be that for you.
Oh, I don't know, man. Carlos Martinez was great in 2016.
I guess that's true. Dude threw 200 innings.
He was awesome. Yeah. I think it always gets understated how good Carlos Martinez was early on in his career. But, yeah, if you get what you had from Carlos in 2016 out of Sonny, then you basically need 2 other dudes to emerge as better than what you had out of Mike Leake, which is a 4.7, and Adam Wainwright, which is a 4.6 ERA. Can you do that? Can you find those pitchers in your rotation? I think Fetty can.
And I think
he can
Palante
be better than what Adam Wainwright was. And then you need somebody else in your rotation to be better than what Mike Leake was for you that year. Yeah. I think you have multiple outs in that regard, whether it's Liberatore or Palante, Matt, whoever you think could be that. That's what you have to do. You got to find those guys in your rotation. T-Bone, where are you at on them?
Yeah, I think the rotation at best can be fine. I think it can be good enough to where the offense can propel them to the 80 to 85 wins. It just depends on how you view. I think the guy that is the swingman in all of this is if you're buying in what you've seen from Matthew Liberatore. Because to me right now, Liberatore looks like a really good bottom part of the order, or bottom like 4-5 starter for you. And then you add in Andre Palante, and Sonny Gray's really good, and Fetty's fine. If Liberatore is good, then I think you're going to be set up where you're going to have success. Mikolas, at some point, I just expect is going to be out of the rotation. That was fine that he did on Saturday. I don't think he continued to sustain that because I don't think the swing and miss is going to be there continuously. but you can replace him with a Matz or a McGreevy. Like, they've got the outs to your point. It just comes down to, does Liberatore stabilize one of those spots for me? Because if he does, now you don't have multiple spots that you got to try and figure out what you're going to do. I think they're going to be ultimately okay. I don't think they're going to be anything great. It's definitely not a playoff rotation, but it is definitely a rotation that you can say, okay, give us like a quality start, and our offense can score 4 to 5 runs and win this for us.
Missed this. Just announced by the Cardinals. Cooper Jerpy has been transferred to the injured list, the season-long injured list for AA, unfortunately. He had Tommy John surgery. He is not expected to return until midway through the 2026
Our minor league
season.
arms are dropping like flies because Matthews is on the IL with a shoulder injury.
Quinn Matthews was put on the IL yesterday as well.
Somebody wrap Michael McGreevy up in bubble wrap.
And it sounds like, I mean, Mo made a comment yesterday to the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, and when asked what the return is, what the expectation is for his timeline for Quinn Matthews, he said TBD. They're not sure yet. It doesn't sound particularly optimistic about his potential.
Cardinals are never right on
So
injuries.
one of the reasons why they wanted to have this six-man at the big league level, why they didn't get rid of Miles Mikolas, is because of stuff like this. It's not just injuries at the big league level. It's also, hey, the backfill, the guys that were potentially available for you down in the minor leagues that you thought could be interesting arms down the stretch, what if they get hurt as well? Quinn Matthews did not have the velo, and now he's on the injured list. I know it was a little further away for Cooper Jerpy, but he could have potentially even been a bullpen arm for you at some point later on this year. He's obviously not going to be an option for that anymore either. You needed McGreevy to be available for you whenever you need that guy to come up and make a spot start at the big league level. So I know it's frustrating. I get it. I don't think anybody should be overly optimistic about Miles Mikolas, but this is part of why they kept him around. It's just to give themselves an extra out. And again, I'm not telling you it was great, but Saturday, that performance by Mikolas, it kept you afloat. It allowed you to have a breather for your bullpen where he didn't just implode after 2 innings. And now you go into the 6-man rotation spot and you feel like you're not in a terrible spot because he was able to give you a little more depth than previously, and the other guys have been able to elevate around him as well. So I just wanted to mention that because a couple of injured list spots for the Cardinals down in the minor leagues, it does speak to their lack of depth pitching-wise on the starting side of things. They've got some interesting arms in the bullpen, but the rotation is pretty light when it comes to the depth.
No
All right,
way, no.
with Alex and T-Bone on BK. Coming up next, we'll hit the rewind here on BK and Ferrario. Hey, alongside Alex and T1 on BK. If you guys missed anything from today's show, be sure to check it out on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It's all sponsored by
Schaefer Door Company.
That 101 ESPN app. It's really great. It's free to use, or free to download, super easy to use. It's sponsored by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. You can get our podcast over there. You can get the Last Minute Blues podcast over there, the Redbird Report podcast over there as well. You can check all of those out. You can always find those as well on YouTube at youtube.com/101 ESPN STL. All right. We will continue here with our conversation about the Cardinals first, and then we'll finish the show on what is obviously the biggest story in St. Louis today, which is the Blues tonight. Huge game for them with massive playoff ramifications. Cardinals back in action against the Houston Astros tonight. Took game one. Fetty on the mound going up against Hunter Brown. Alex, I want to see more of the same, right? Like yesterday, you were able to prove it against a lefty. This is a lineup that should be better against righties. Hunter Brown's been really good so far this season. He's not your traditional ace because he doesn't have the name recognition. He's still a relatively young player, but man, doing it again against a guy like this would show me a whole hell of a lot. What are you looking forward to tonight? Cardinals versus the Astros.
Just continuing what they've been doing. I mean, it's not so much like I'm going into games searching for something now. Now I've seen what I want to see. I just want to see you keep doing it because this offense does have a lot of excitement around it. We went back and forth if I'm willing to buy into it. I just want to see it continue because for so many times it's come down to you get excited about it and then it just kind of disappoints you and then you're like, what just happened? I want to see this thing continuing to roll. To me, it doesn't matter if it's a lefty or righty on the mound. Your lineup is always stacked with guys that can hit from the left, that can hit from the right, and you've got a lot of these pieces that are hitting in ideal spots. So right now, it's pitching. Can your pitching continue to hold tight like we've been talking about? But more than anything, just keep doing the offense the right way.
You mentioned the pitching. I do want to see Eric Fetty tonight. He had some walk issues in his last couple appearances, both against Boston and then against Pittsburgh. It bit him against Boston, didn't as much against Pittsburgh. That's not sustainable. This is a guy that has to win with command. I don't think he's going to be this high swing and miss guy the way that he was for a portion of last season. That's not him, but he's got to control the contact. He's been doing a pretty good job of that, but the walks have to go away. That cannot be something that continues against a team like the Astros. That's where you get yourself into trouble. I know they have not hit so far this year. They're going to eventually. You've got to avoid that starting with you. Fetty on the mound tonight. Hopefully he's able to keep them at bay. Cardinals versus the Astros. I'll be out there, so expect a super weird game. It begins at 6:45. On the other side of town, it is the Blues. Is it really?
No, I said it's not supposed to, right?
I didn't think it was
It
supposed
will,
to
though.
Blues versus the Utah Hockey Club. Win in regulation, you make it into the playoffs. It's that simple. Don't worry about the other scenarios. We'll get to those tomorrow if we have to. Hopefully we don't. But Alex, what are you looking forward to, man? This is a huge one at Enterprise tonight.
They've played 3 consecutive games where they have not looked like the same team out of the Four Nations break. I want to see you back to that team. Heavy forecheck, smart plays, exits out of your own zone quickly. I feel confident with this tonight. I woke up a little scared, but as we move along, it just feels like one of those games to where you've got a lot of guys who understand the gravity of this situation and some younger players that are trying to figure it out. And look, the one area that you really want your team to be good at going into this game is defense, and you've got every single defenseman that you want, arguably, in the lineup. It's a game that you should be able to win. It's a game that Utah should not be the better team, but what does it look like? We're gonna find out at about 7:15.
Unlike Benner, I'm very nervous because Utah has had the Blues number over the last couple of years. I just worry about what it would mean if they give up the first goal, right? Just that mindset of, oh boy, here we go again. And the Blues know it, right? I mean, JR was in here and he mentioned, like, hey, we asked Braden Chen about Keller and how that line's gone against him. And Chen's like, we know. Yeah. I'll be curious to see what happens if they give up the first goal. The hope is they don't. The hope is that they can establish what you were just talking about. They can get back to playing their style of game. But we haven't been able to see them do that without Dylan Holloway. So that's what makes me super nervous going into tonight. I think they win, but I don't say that with my chest puffed out thinking they're clinching their playoff spot tonight.
Don't go into the third down. That's where I'd be very concerned because they have 3 wins this season when they enter the third period trailing.
Yeah, I mean, that's just not a good situation for anybody. I just want to see if this team's really different. Because we've seen this team be in spots like this in previous seasons, and a lot of the time they fall a little flat, right? The Blues for most of the year, they responded to that adversity, especially under Jim Montgomery. They went into the Four Nations face-off, had no chance of being where they are today. No chance. Everybody, including myself, had written them completely off. And then they go on that crazy run, so much so that they had the travel issues, Alex. I remember Monty talking about it, and he was like, I was excited when we had travel issues because it seems like every time that this team has its back against the wall, they respond and they play their best game possible. Well, guess what? Backs could not be further up against the wall tonight. You have the opportunity to push all of that away. The Utah nonsense of the last 5 years, you can wash that away. The fact that you can't win without Dylan Holloway in the lineup, wash that away. The fact that this team was not supposed to make it to the playoffs this year, nobody believed in them other than the people inside of that organization, wash that all away. It's all possible for them tonight. It begins at 6 o'clock right here on your home of the Blues, 101 ESPN. Alex will have pregame coverage, puck drop right here on 101 ESPN tonight at 7. For Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. We have plenty to talk to you guys about tomorrow at 11 a.m. Chris Kerber, the voice of the Blues, will join us to hopefully discuss the Blues clinching a playoff spot. All of that tomorrow here on the show. The Fast Lane's coming up next here on 101 ESPN.